Come to order and let the record show that today is February 28th, 2019 at 9 o'clock a.m. I would ask my good friend, who I don't get to see near enough, Mr. Abbott, would you do the honor in leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here this morning. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. There is a seat, Mr. Vogel, if you care to. Or
It looks like there's others coming
okay.
in.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. Welcome. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Flowers.
Present.
Commissioner Candace.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, any additions or amendments to the agenda?
I don't know, one thought maybe. I think everybody came here today to see Charles come back from vacation. But he's here, so if you want to leave, you can. But that's just a thought. If you're here for the second amendment sanctuary county resolution, can you raise your hand? Okay, there's a lot of you here. It's at the end of the agenda. Maybe we ought to move it forward and have that discussion, and they don't need to stay for all of it. We can discuss that.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll go ahead and I'll move that we move the discussion of the resolution of 19-02 Sanctuary County Resolution to the top of new business.
I'll second.
Then moving second to amend the agenda by moving the resolution 19-2 to the beginning of the new business. Any discussion? I would just say that I certainly agree with this. I just want us to be aware that if somebody walks in here about 11 or 11:30 and wants to have input,
We'll have another reason.
they're not going to be very happy about that. But
I don't think they most people probably didn't realize the timing. If they do, that is an
I don't
issue.
think we put a time on it.
no, we didn't. It's just typically if it's late in the agenda, I think people have an idea that it's going to come up later. But I certainly appreciate everybody's interest in being here, and I would support your motion. So, further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Do you want a little comment?
No. So we will move the discussion of resolution 19-02, Sanctuary County Resolution, to the beginning of new business, of which, of course, we will allow public comment at that time. Any other amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we will move on to approval of the minutes.
I got them all this time, so I move we approve.
I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 31, February 5, February 6, and February 20. Discussion.
I just want to commend Kelly for doing a good job.
I'm catching up.
Thank you.
Look pretty good.
No, I liked it. You did a good job.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendment, or the minutes for
31.
just dropped my
5, and 6.
document. Yeah, 30, January 31, February 5, February 6, February 20. My document just went away, so. Audience introductions. Let's start over here, please.
Jackie Beavis for the
And
Sentinel.
before we go further, I know Kelly likes to record the names of everybody in the audience, so we'll kind of go slow. And if you can speak loudly and clearly, and if you do not catch one, just flag me down. We'll do it again. Fair enough. Thank you.
Peggy Collins,
Yeah.
rural Westcliff.
Scott Lindstedt, rural Westcliff.
Okay.
Jim Shapland, rural Westcliff.
Mr. Abbott.
Tom Abbott, Custer County. Cal Leslie, rural Westcliff.
Let's stay on this side of the room, ma'am, if you would, please.
Susan Aiken, A-K-I-N, rural Westcliff.
Colin Joseph, Rosita. Jerry Glassman, rural Westcliff.
Mark Hebert, Custer County.
Clear in the back, sir.
Richard Foreman, rural Westcliff.
Last name again?
Foreman.
Foreman. Okay, thank you.
Larkin Foreman, rural Westland.
And up
Kelly,
here,
it's F-O-R-M-A-N.
up here in the front, please.
David DeTillian, rural Westcliff.
You got spelling on that, ma'am, or are you okay?
I got it.
DeTillion.
E.T.
And Teresa, utility TRESA.
Brandon Russ, rural West.
Dale Mullen, rural Westcliff, representing Custer County Economic Development.
Shelley Dunham with Southern Colorado Economic Development District.
I'm sorry.
Danny Smith, Silvercliff.
Martha Davis, rural Westcliff.
Jeremy Hockett, I live in Custer Vista.
Charles Bogle, rural Custer County.
Not with economic development anymore, Charles?
Yeah, I'm still there, and basically here to support the introduction of our new skid.
Good.
Terry Napoleon, Custer County, resident.
Anybody else out there like to be on the record?
Fred Hernandez.
Fred's out there, Hernandez.
If you'd like. Just offer the seat to you, ma'am.
Okay, we're good? All right, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your taking your time out of your day and your interest in our agenda, so welcome. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you like to begin, sir?
Sure, I'll go quickly. We just met last week, but I've been kind of busy between them. We met with the Justice Center meeting after that meeting last week, and then that evening we had the task force meeting on the new Justice Center, and then the next morning early we met again at the bowling alley on the task force meeting. I've discussed multiple issues with many people in the county. The one I'd like to just pass on is that I had two different people tell me that Gary Hyde has been doing a really good job on their particular roads. I know I've had some people that complain that there have been a lot of potholes and stuff. In fact, I heard that where our new bridges on Hermit, there's a
Yeah, we got some
issue.
problems there. I've
Yeah.
talked to him about.
Right. But other than that, I've heard very good news. So kind of that's what I've been up to since a week ago.
Have you gotten out of your comfort zone recently and actually driven across the bridge that we drive across all the time? Because
I know that bridge, and of course I have.
There's a pothole or something.
No, it's fine. I knew you knew about it. I knew it was getting repaired. I just mentioned that several people have mentioned it.
Yeah,
to
it's
me.
great, and I've gotten a lot of compliments on it too.
Me
As
too.
well as the signs, the new signs we've been putting up
Right.
for the old roads.
I was hoping we'd have a CDOT person because we got a serious pothole right here at the intersection of 69.
Tell me about it.
Oh my gosh, thing is brutal. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I wanted to let you know that I've got my own private little collection of satellite phones right back here that I've been gathering up on behalf of CenturyLink. The folks down on the canyon have been turning those in, and I spoke with Tim Kunkelman, and I'm assuming you must have had initial conversation, I don't know, but somebody walked in with a sat phone and said, I was told I was supposed to give these to the commissioners. I said, oh, okay. So I let Tim know that we were gathering those, and I'll take those to the meeting on the 29th and turn those in for him. The other thing I want to talk about real quick, it's not on the agenda, but I would like to have a conversation and possibly by general consent consider moving the two decommissioned sheriff's vehicles that are sitting over by the sheriff's department now, moving those down to the airport and storing those
Yeah, it's a good
at
idea.
that airport. They are trying to get a plan put together for some courtesy cars down there. The county owns those two vehicles. Sheriff's Department has decommissioned those. I've spoken with Shannon Byerly. Good to see you, sir. Welcome back. And certainly he didn't have an issue with that. I spoke to the airport board and said, look, I don't know if your plan's going to come to fruition or not. Have no idea, but we need to do something with these vehicles, and I would recommend we just send them down there, and those guys can park them inside the airport property, and if they get everything put in place for a courtesy car.
I'll be talking with both Lynn and Bob here this afternoon, and we'll discuss that.
I'll just make a comment. The vehicles are decommissioned after many, many miles and lots of road use. Before we use it to transport people from the airport into town, which I think is a great idea. They'll come shop, spend money, restaurants, whatever. I would just like to suggest that we have them certified, looked over by mechanics to make sure that we're not putting our citizens or people, visitors, into a dangerous vehicle. That's all I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and the good news about that is we have records on each one of those. They've been done by Byron at the road bridge all these years. All the maintenance up, and we'll have him
Decommissioned
recheck
them for a reason. That's why
Well,
I just want
yeah.
to make sure they're
Sure,
okay.
that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, both vehicles have over 200,000 miles on them.
211.
I spoke with Sheriff Byerly. He and his folks would pull the DTR radios out of those. And then I think next week we'll speak to Mr. Hyde about having the road and bridge crew.
I did mention that they actually do take the decals off, the road and bridge one.
Yeah, that's
Well, that's good, because the drivers then, if they were still
Right.
on, might
They
go
won't have
900
the
miles
lights
an hour
rolling
down the
and,
road.
Yeah.
And the radios, I peeked in the windows quickly. Are they on a tree thing, or are they dash mounted or console mounted?
They're mounted in the console.
Okay. So
we'll
your
take the
folks will
radios
take
out.
those out, and
Yeah,
then
we'll
we'll
take the
speak to
radios out
Mr.
of
Hyde about having road and bridge crew, or the mechanics at road and bridge.
Yeah, because the
Take
overhead
the
lights will
decals.
have to be taken off of them. The decals will have to be
Right.
stripped out. I mean, they're going to want to take a bunch of stuff out from
Right.
the inside of them.
Yeah. So if that's what the commissioners decide this morning, then I think it would be appropriate to talk to Mr. Hyde during the staff report next week and
Yeah, they
see what his feelings are about that. So, Attorney Smith, you believe this requires a motion to move a vehicle down there that the county owns?
No.
By consent, gentlemen, you okay with that? Thank you. I will speak with the new chairman of the advisory board for the airport, Lynn Legree, and we'll get.
Like I said, I'll be meeting with him here this afternoon.
Yeah, just let him, if you would just tell him, we'll let them know when the work's been done. There's no reason to take them down there and bring them back to have the decals and stuff on. Don't you think we ought to get the radios out and send them straight to road and bridge?
Absolutely.
So next week after we talk.
Hey,
to
Shannon, is he there still?
Yeah, Shannon?
Can your guys take them over to the road and bridge guys here? I'll talk to Gary and see if it's room.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
we
let
just,
you know.
we just need a bit of time to get the radios out and stuff, but
Sure.
we'll
All
get
right,
that. We'll
I'll
get
talk
that
to you
moving.
about it later.
We won't talk to Gary until Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, so we'll have,
Okay.
the next couple of weeks will be good, but, thank you, appreciate that. And then quickly, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but, let's see here, just wanted to highlight some, of the activities I've been involved with. Our last BOCC meeting was on the 20th. I attended an airport board meeting, and then the Justice Center committee had a meeting to look at questions submitted to the commissioners on the RFPs for a new Justice Center. So we met on the 21st and looked at those. And then the 22nd, we had a strategic planning task force meeting, 21st and 22nd, one in the evening, and then we had one the following morning. And then I met with one of the representatives from SEH architect firm out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He came up, wanted to do a site tour and look at our property for the Justice Center. His company is planning on submitting a proposal, the architectural proposal. So I spent an hour or so with him, as did Sheriff Byerly. Also attended a Friends of Beckwith reorganizational meeting for their board for their board of directors. That was on the 25th. And worked with the airport board. I procured a conference table for them, and we hauled that down there.
Did you get it down there?
Yep, it's down there and ready to go. We're having a commissioner meeting down
Did it
there in
fit?
April, so yep. So that'll be nice. They were excited about that. So Then we had an ESF 11 meeting over at Search and Rescue Building, and that is basically an annex in their state wildlife or wildfire annual operating plan to make arrangements for the evacuation, not that the county would evacuate, but have documents in place for the evacuation and care for small and large animals in the event of wildfire. And then that afternoon we had a CES meeting, Custer Emergency Services meeting. And then yesterday I went out and toured the fire mitigation site in Silver Cliff Ranch. We have a grant paying for a bunch of mitigation work out there. That gentleman is doing a good job. And, I know there was some angst about one of the landowners and the condition of the road. We drove up that road, Cindy Howard and I looked at that. There was absolutely no damage caused by any of his equipment. He had pulled a pickup in a dual axle trailer up that road, and so one of the landowners questioned him about that. But I spoke to that landowner and said, you know, we're fine, there's no damage to this road, so let's just move forward in a positive manner. So I think we're working on that. So that's pretty cool if you get a chance. It's nice to see that mitigation work going. I think that's about it. Mr. Cannon?
Yeah, about that.
Sorry.
You would want to include the
Oh, yeah. It's a good point. Let's do that. I would like to recognize Custer County Economic Development Committee members, Mr. Bogle and Mr. Mullen. They have an introduction for us, so I will let them do that. They can certainly do a better job of it than I can. Thank you, sir, for reminding me.
We have a new executive director of Southern Colorado Economic Development District, Sherry, and Shelley. We've only met twice. But if you have a couple of minutes, she can give her a little background and let some of you all know what the schedule is for us.
Okay. Your last name, Shelley? I know I have it written down.
It's Dunham.
Dunham, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I started in my position, I'm the Executive Director of SCED, Southern Colorado Economic Development District, February 1st, so I'm still very new. The organization has been without a director for a little while, for several months, and so I'm really working on doing a listening and learning tour through, we're responsible for 13 counties in Southern Colorado. So you are my second visit, although I did meet the two gentlemen from your economic development earlier. Basically, I think that the two things that I am focused on right now are learning what is happening in each of the counties and how I can help you advance your economic development efforts. And I think that the two biggest benefits that we can bring are, one, I have been working in funding and economic development for a long time, and I've written funding applications for everything from USDA to EDA to Department of Transportation and everything in between, as well as state funding and foundation funding. So the one benefit I think that we can bring is to help connect you to funding to get the things done that you want to get done in your county. I mean, there's grant funding out there. Southern Colorado tends to be a little bit forgotten in that area. And so my focus really is on making sure that those dollars are there. Let's bring our fair share home to where we need it. And the second thing is really working to connect each of our counties that I'm serving to the resources that are out there. Besides money, there's other resources that can be brought to bear to help the people in Southern Colorado. Those are really my two areas of focus. So I'm really here today to meet with you, and I'm meeting with your economic development group and then your housing group also today to just find out what you need and how I can help.
In your office down at Pueblo, correct?
Yes, our office is down in Pueblo, which is great because it's 3 hours to the west end of the district from there and 3 hours to the east end, so it's nice right in the middle. And I have to say, this is my first time to West Cliff. It is absolutely beautiful out there. I mean, you can't ask for nothing much better than drive through the San Isabel National Forest in your morning to start your day. So it was an absolutely gorgeous trip and a beautiful place.
Where do you live?
We live in Pueblo.
Pueblo, so you came up over the Hardscrap.
Yeah, I came up the south end instead. I thought it might be a little more scenic.
Nice
also,
to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Nice to meet you.
Okay, Commissioner Kanda?
Yeah, we did a lot of the same things, so I won't repeat it, task force meetings, et cetera. But the next prosperity plan meeting of strategic plans on the 19th of March. Down on your calendars, it's a community meeting, and we're thinking about maybe having another task force, but we'll see how it goes. On that, I thought it went well. It's a great, we had, how many inputs? It's over 600,
Yeah, I think 620.
620, I think it was. Oh, you got some more?
And some more.
Okay. Surveys. So it is truly representative of the county's opinion, and it's going to be very useful.
When and where is that?
Rancher's Roost, 5:30.
Yeah, it's Rancher's Roost at 5:30. If we have a task force meeting, that'll be at 3 in the afternoon. Then it wraps up by the 2nd of April, so we're going to have a community joint commissioner task force meeting, and we'll tweak it maybe. We'll see what we got, take recommendations, and either approve it or work a little bit. And hopefully finish up final documents by the 2nd of April. That's the plan. Worked a lot with the airport. We got the contractor Seifert's paid for the berm removal. That went through fine. We have an outstanding invoice for Armstrong Engineering for $3,600 that was submitted back the 1st of February by us to OT6, and it should be coming soon. And then I've been working with the Navajo Indian Nation, and it's interesting because it's good to let the public know what's going on too. We did that in order to find out what kind of aircraft they plan on bringing in here, because we want to accommodate it from a fuel point of view in the future, because there's future development at the airport that OT6 is helping fund. We're going after a grant as well, and I'd like to talk to you about maybe that before you leave.
Absolutely.
We are working a grant with DOLA for the fuel farm on that, and we'll split that with them and OT6. So I'd like to get some ideas from you, maybe.
Sure.
That would be useful. But the Indian Nation, turns out, they do have a couple big aircraft that'll be in here, and the airport is load limited for it, so it works based on the testing we did. But more importantly, I learned that the upper end of Wolf Springs Ranch, the North Ranch they call it, for the Indian Nation, is going to continue as a bison cow and calf operation. They're going to use that to stock herds out in the world, and they're also looking to expand that into a meat operation, potentially a market to do that. So we're going to keep it as a ranch. The upper end, they bought the Boyer Ranch, and that's in the Custer County side, and that's going to continue to be a calf-cow operation for their people to work and do different things. So I thought that was good to find out. Also, they have a piece of ground at the airport that was going to be a hangar for the Redmonds at one point, and we tried to chase down who owns that. We've got varying answers from, yeah, transferred with the deed, but we don't know. And then when I did talk to the air transportation director for the Navajo Nation, he said, we have no clue where it is, who owns what. He says they got a turnover of government directors, and they think if they do have an intent to keep it, it would be for a machine shop or something. But I said our intent would be to take it back if they're willing to trade it back to us for our use for other things at the airport. So we'll see. That's going to take some time to resolve. And we had a VSO, a bunch of candidates, good candidates that we all took a look. We're going to interview those coming up here in a few days. So just wanted to, I thought we had some good candidates. So we took a look at them. And that's all for now.
Okay.
We'll get on with this.
Attorney items?
Just very briefly, new member of the tourism board, Bob Swanson, contacted me, wanted an agreement to use with people that might submit photographs or videos and things to use. And I went over that and reviewed it, made a few suggested changes and gave that to him. I prepared this proposed resolution number 19-02 that's on the agenda, and it will be read and then open for discussion a little bit later. And I worked on a private legal matter that you're familiar with, and I want to, it also affects the county, so I didn't want to discuss that in an executive session at the end of today's meeting and bring you up to date.
Okay. All right, sir. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Admin assistant items, I don't think she has any, but
Just shake yes or no. No. He has no items.
We have the opportunity for public comment on our agenda. Most of you have indicated you're here for resolution 19-02 dealing with the Sanctuary County resolution that we're considering today. So if you have comments about that, I would prefer you hold those until the public comment portion of that agenda. It's on the agenda and that will be allowed for public comment then. But if you have any other public comments, anyone that you would like to bring forward to the commissioners, you are more than welcome to do that at this time.
Any issue? Anything bugging you?
I have some comments
Go
on
ahead,
the ordinance to on the growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana.
Yes, sir. Could you state your name, please, again?
My name is Danny Smith.
Thank you, sir.
There's a few items on here that are against the Colorado Constitution. I don't see how you I don't think there was very good due diligence on this ordinance. First of all, it says, whereas this, I only have a copy of Silver Cliff's ordinance. I've been told they're all basically the same.
Okay. Well,
so if I say something that isn't on your ordinance, correct me.
Okay. Now, sir, may I just interject something here for a second?
Yes.
And the chair would probably allow this debate to continue. You're aware that this is on the agenda.
Yes.
And there will be public comment time specifically for that resolution.
I'll wait for that.
Again, if you're willing to wait, that would be the
That's
preference,
fine.
but the chair has already recognized you, so I would allow you to continue if you so choose. But and then in the meantime, I might ask our administrative assistant to pull a copy of the resolution that we will actually be looking at. Then you won't have to refer
Let's
to
do that
Silver
and I'll wait.
Perfect, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Other public comment? Okay, we will move forward. Any unfinished business, gentlemen?
I don't have.
No.
Nor do I. We'll move on to new business. Again, public comment will be allowed on each item that is an action item. We will hear public comment prior to a vote on any of these things, so I want you to be aware of that. So, the first item of business is discussion of the resolution of, and actually it should be consideration of the resolution of 19-02. Sanctuary County resolution, and I would ask Commissioner or Councilor Smith to read that resolution for us, if you would, please.
I will, and this was at the request of Sheriff Byerly that the board consider adopting this resolution. And I noticed that yesterday, or the day before, Fremont County Commissioners adopted essentially the identical resolution.
And may I just say for the record that this is the first opportunity the commissioners have had to consider this.
Yes.
We have not discussed this before. It's coming before the commissioners for the first time.
That's correct. He had asked if you would consider it. I took the liberty of preparing a proposed resolution and sent it to you for your consideration, and you decided to put it on the agenda today for public discussion and for possible vote on it. So,
okay, thank you.
With that statement, resolution number 19-02, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners for Custer County declaring said county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners for Custer County, the board, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, is aware that legislation is now pending in the Colorado General Assembly, which is known as the Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, House Bill 19-1177, and whereas Section 30-11-101, subparagraph 2, Colorado Revised Statute, grants to each county the authority to adopt and enforce ordinances and resolutions regarding health, safety, and welfare issues for the well-being of the citizens of the county. And whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the inalienable and individual right of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in the case of District of Columbia v. Heller, 554 U.S. 570, a 2008 case, affirmed an individual's right to possess arms unconnected with service in a militia for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in the case of McDonald v. Chicago, 561 U.S. 742, a 2010 decision, affirmed the right of an individual to keep and bear arms as protected under the Second Amendment is incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment against the states. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in the case of United States v. Miller, 307 U.S. 174, a 1939 decision, ruled that firearms that are part of ordinary military equipment or with use that could contribute to the common defense are protected by the Second Amendment. And whereas Article 2, Section 13 of the Colorado Constitution provides that the right of no person to keep and bear arms in defense of his home, person, or property, or in aid of the civil power when thereto legally summoned, shall be called in question. But nothing herein contained shall be so construed to justify the practice of carrying concealed weapons. And whereas it is the desire of the Board to declare its support of and allegiance to the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 2, Section 13 of the Colorado Constitution, both of which protect and guarantee the inalienable and individual right to keep and bear arms. And whereas the members of this board took an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution, the Colorado Constitution, and the laws of the state of Colorado, insofar as such laws are constitutional. And whereas it is the unanimous opinion of this board that House Bill 19-11.
That's right, that's
If I don't have him, I can't make it all for a walk there are several places where I just lay down the whole of it.
I'll try to stay under control.
Next one will be in favor of apple pie. Get another.
This is an updated schedule.
Sanctuary. That's the rule. No speed of sanctuary, so we can't enforce speed or drive. I mean,
Are you in?
to where we go with this thing, you know?
When do you want to
It's not as fancy as the one hanging in.
I'm around all day today, so I have
Frame it.
10 o'clock meeting, I have 11 o'clock meeting, and I should be open.
Thank you.
Now we can all spread out. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, what's the office? Office acts or whatever, that was easy.
I have a button. Good. This has been what, a month? Not
Commissioner meeting will come back to order. Next item of business is review the vouchers and sign. Approve the vouchers as presented.
Oh, sorry.
Discussion.
Now, take
I had a couple leave. One, do you remember anything about that? Flagship Publishing, $2,736.
I do remember a conversation, but honestly, Mr. Chairman, I don't remember. I do remember there was a discussion. I don't remember what the vote was, but I assume.
What are you asking?
Certainly not trying to put you on the spot. Just wanted to know if we had some background on
It was
You know anything about
the
it?
Flagship Publishing. So, okay, no problem. That's, I just did not have a chance to research that.
Is it Colorado Life?
Could be, I don't know, Flagship Publishing. So.
It may be Colorado Life.
That's probably.
Oh, there it is, yes.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Whispered.
I know, but see, I can hear.
That's pretty good.
And then I,
So cumulative and then additional.
gentlemen,
Dan.
or folks, sorry. I spoke with Mrs. Hobby about a couple other vouchers that came through, one being our Council of Governments recycling dues of $2,332, and there was a credit in there of $1,400 some dollars based on the materials that were sold, cardboard I suspect, but I just thought that was interesting that we're paying a national recycling dues of $2,300 this year. And then another point that I researched a little bit, I talked with Gary Hyde, our road and bridge supervisor, was on a purchase of $3,378 for a piece of equipment for their mechanic shop down there. I got my answer to that. It was a big, obviously a heavy equipment for jack pneumatic or hydraulic either one. So those were the questions I had, and I think I got most of those answered. Anything else, gentlemen? Commissioner Camden?
Nope.
Public comment? I know it's hard to comment on a document, especially a financial document that you don't have in front of you, but if you had a question about the processes or whatever, I'm glad to answer those. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on approving the vouchers for February.
We accept the presentation of the vouchers as presented.
I thought, did we have that motion? Yes, we have that motion.
Did we already do that?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries.
It was noisy then.
All right, we'll, if you don't mind putting your.
Took everything. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, sir. Sorry.
That's all right, no problem.
Got carried away.
And so while we're doing that, we will move on, and we will recognize Councilor Smith for the second and final reading of Ordinance 19-01. And for the folks in the audience, so that you understand, we will hear the second and final reading, and then the chair would entertain a motion if there is one, and prior to voting, then we will have public comment. You okay with that, folks? Good. All right, sir.
And for the record, the first reading was done on January 31st of 2019, and at that time it was adopted on first reading. With the statutory procedure requires the second reading. Ordinance number 19-01, an ordinance of Custer County, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, regulating residential growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana in the unincorporated areas of said county. Whereas Section 14 and 16 of Article 18 of the Constitution of the State of Colorado, Amendments 20 and 64 respectively, authorize persons to grow limited amounts of marijuana or to assist others in growing marijuana. And whereas Amendment 20 granted to local governments the general authority to prohibit commercial marijuana operations.
That's what he's reading. Thank you.
And whereas with the adoption of ordinance number 13-01 on September 5, 2013 by the Board of County Commissioners for Custer County, the board, commercial marijuana operations were prohibited within the unincorporated areas of Custer County. And whereas neither Amendment 20 nor Amendment 64 permit local governments to deny individuals the constitutional right to engage in non-commercial unlicensed grow operations, and whereas regulations of the state of Colorado pertaining to commercial marijuana operations are generally not directed toward non-commercial, unlicensed individual grow operations, and whereas this circumstance has resulted in a proliferation of non-licensed and unregulated marijuana grow operations in Custer County that present significant health and public safety concerns, with multiple violations of the Custer County zoning resolution, and also violations of electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and fire codes that are in force for the unincorporated areas of the county. And whereas Section 30-11-101, subparagraph 2, Colorado Revised Statutes, gives the board the authority to adopt and enforce ordinances regarding health, safety, and welfare issues, and to provide penalties for the violation of same. And whereas the board is further authorized pursuant to Section 25-1.5-106, parenthesis 13.5, Colorado Revised Statutes, to regulate the growing of marijuana, commercial or otherwise. And whereas the board is further authorized pursuant to Section 9-7-113, Colorado Revised Statutes, to ban the use of compressed flammable gas in the extraction of THC or other cannabinoids in a residential setting. And whereas the board has determined that the adoption of regulations governing the growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana in a residential setting is necessary and desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Custer County, and wherefore this ordinance number 19-01 does not unreasonably impair or impede the exercise of constitutional rights afforded citizens under Amendments 20 and 64. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of County Commissioners of Custer County, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, as follows. Part 1. Section 1. Scope of ordinance and authority. This ordinance number 19-01 applies within the unincorporated areas of Custer County and regulates the growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana on any lot, parcel, or tract of land by any person, including but not limited to patients, primary caregivers, or persons engaging in such conduct for personal use. Section 2. Definitions. The definitions contained in Amendment 20 to the Colorado Constitution, the Colorado Medical Marijuana Code, the Colorado Medical Marijuana Program, and any regulations promulgated by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and the Colorado Department of Revenue, as amended from time to time, are incorporated into this ordinance number 19-01 by reference, including but not limited to definitions of marijuana, medical marijuana, patient, and primary caregiver. All other applicable definitions are as stated herein. Subparagraph A. Accessory structure means a subordinate structure detached from but located on the same lot, parcel, or tract of land as the primary residence, the use of which is incidental and accessory to that of the primary residence. Subparagraph B. Accessory use means a use incidental to and subordinate to the primary residence. Subparagraph C. Primary residence means a residence where a person, by custom and practice, makes his or her principal domicile and address, and to which the person intends to return following any temporary absence, such as a vacation. Residence is evidenced by actual daily physical presence, occupancy, and use on a regular basis for domestic purposes, such as but not limited to slumber, preparation and partaking of meals, regular mail delivery, vehicle registration, or water and utility billing. A person shall have only one primary residence. Subparagraph D. Primary use means the main use of a structure or land, as distinguished from an accessory use. Section 3, growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana. Subparagraph A, marijuana may only be grown, cultivated, or processed as an accessory use at the primary residence of the person engaging in such activity, and only 1, for such person's own consumption and use, or 2, if the person is acting as a primary caregiver, then for the consumption and use of that person's patients. Subparagraph B, marijuana may only be grown, cultivated, or processed in a primary residence where residential use is the primary use of the structure, or in an accessory structure to the primary residence on the same property. Subparagraph C, the space used for the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana, whether in a primary residence or an accessory structure, shall be limited to a contiguous 1,000 cubic foot volume. Subparagraph D, the use of an accessory structure for the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana shall only be permitted on a lot, parcel, or tract of land that is 1 acre in size or greater. Subparagraph E, marijuana shall not be grown, cultivated, or processed in more than 1 structure on any single lot, parcel, or tract of land. Subparagraph F, marijuana shall not be grown, cultivated, or processed within the common areas of a multifamily or attached residential development. Subparagraph G, any area used for the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana shall be fully enclosed and locked, ensuring accessibility only by the person growing, cultivating, or processing the marijuana for personal use or for medical use, and to prevent access by children, visitors, casual passers-by, or anyone not authorized to possess marijuana. Subparagraph F or H, any area used for the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana shall comply with all applicable land use codes, building codes, and fire codes, including plumbing, electrical, and mechanical regulations and requirements. Subparagraph I, non-residential buildings or structures that are not accessory to a primary residence shall not be used for the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana. Subparagraph J, marijuana shall not be grown, cultivated, or processed outdoors. Section 4, marijuana plant limits. At any given time, no more than 12 marijuana plants in any stage of maturity may be grown, cultivated, or processed in a primary residence or in an accessory structure on a single lot, parcel, or tract of land, regardless of how many persons 21 years of age or older may occupy said residence. This limitation, which is based on section 18-18-406, subparagraph 3, subparagraph A, subparagraph Roman numeral 2, subparagraph uppercase A, Colorado Revised Statutes, supersedes the statutory provision that grants to each person 21 years of age or older the right to grow 6 marijuana plants for personal use, and also supersedes the statutory provision that grants to a primary caregiver the right to grow more than 12 plants for his or her patients. Section 5, use of compressed flammable gas products or flammable liquids. No compressed flammable gas, for example butane, or flammable liquid may be used in the growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana. For purposes of this section, flammable liquid means a liquid that has a flash point below 100 degrees Fahrenheit and includes all forms of alcohol and ethanol. Section 6, marijuana activities shall not be perceptible. The growing, cultivating, or processing of marijuana shall not be perceptible from the exterior of the structure in which such activities occur, including but not limited to A, common visual observation, B, light pollution, glare, or brightness that disturbs the repose of others, C, undue vehicular or foot traffic, including unusually heavy parking in the immediate vicinity of the primary residence. Section C, smell or odor. The smell or odor of marijuana growing, being cultivated, or being processed at a primary residence or in an accessory structure shall not be detectable by a person with a normal sense of smell from any adjoining lot, parcel, tract of land, public right-of-way, or building unit. Section 8, rental property. Any lessee or tenant who uses a rental property in whole or in part for growing, cultivating, or processing marijuana shall obtain written notarized permission from the property owner prior to commencing such use. Part 2, Section 1, Administration and Enforcement. The Custer County Sheriff shall be responsible for the administration and enforcement of this ordinance number 19-01. Section 2, Penalty for violations. Any person who violates any provision of this ordinance number 19-01 after its effective date commits a Class 2 petty offense pursuant to Section 30-15-402, subparagraph 1, Colorado Revised Statutes, and upon conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of not more than $1,000 for each separate violation, plus a surcharge of $10 pursuant to Section 30-15-402, subparagraph 2, Colorado Revised Statute. Each day during which such violations exist shall be deemed a separate offense. Section 3, Penalty Assessment Procedure. The penalty assessment procedure set forth in Section 16-2-201 Colorado Revised Statutes shall be followed by law enforcement officers charged with enforcement of this ordinance. Pursuant to the penalty assessment procedure, the violator may, in lieu of going to court, choose to pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 plus a $10 surcharge for a violation of any provision of this ordinance. If the penalty assessment procedure is declined by an alleged violator who chooses to instead to appear in the county court for Custer County and who is ultimately convicted of a violation of this ordinance in said court, then customary court costs may be assessed in addition to the fine. Section 4, Disposition of Fines. All fines and surcharges assessed for violations of this ordinance shall be paid to the treasurer of Custer County. Section 5, Additional Remedies. The remedies provided in this ordinance shall be cumulative and in addition to any other federal, state, or local remedy, criminal or civil, which may be available. Section 6, Severability. Should any section, clause, sentence, or part of this ordinance be adjudged by any court of competent jurisdiction to be unconstitutional or invalid, the same shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the ordinance as a whole or any part thereof other than the part so declared to be unconstitutional or invalid. Section 7, Safety Clause. The Board of County Commissioners for Custer County hereby finds, determines, and declares that this ordinance number 19-01 is necessary for the immediate preservation of the public health, welfare, and safety. Section 8, Effective Date. In order to preserve the immediate health and safety of the residents and citizens of Custer County, this ordinance number 19-01 shall take effect immediately upon its adoption and second and final reading as provided in Section 30-15-405 Colorado Revised Statutes. And then it indicates introduced, read, and adopted on first reading on the 31st day of January 2019, an order published in the Wet Mountain Tribune. That first reading was approved. It was signed by all three commissioners, attested to by Kelly Camper, the county clerk and recorder. And if it's approved today, then it will read adopted on second and final reading on the 28th day of February 2019 and ordered published by reference to title only in the Wet Mountain Tribune. Lines for the commissioners to sign and for their signatures to be attested by the clerk and recorder.
Yes, sir. Group pleasure.
We should applaud his wonderful before.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of writing.
Poor dear.
A lot of reading.
Get that man some water. Was it really?
I move that we approve the second reading by signing in the space provided.
I'll say.
We move and seconded to approve the second and final reading of Resolution 19-01, an ordinance of Custer County, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, regulating residential growing, cultivating, and processing of marijuana in the unincorporated areas of said county. Discussion, gentlemen. Prior to public comment, any discussion?
Nothing new.
Commissioner
None,
Prince.
sir.
Public comment.
Yes, sir.
Name again, sir, if you would. for
Danny
the record.
Smith.
Danny Smith, thank you.
Silver Cliff resident. Paragraph 2.
Can you give us a page number, sir?
Page 1.
Okay.
It's Amendment 20 granted the local governments and general authority to prohibit commercial marijuana operations. I read the Colorado Constitution on this, and it says that is true, but it says it must be done with a vote of the people, and I don't think the county commissioners had a vote of the people on their law of that. You might want to check on that.
There was a public
There was a
vote
vote on that.
There was?
Yeah, there was.
I know Silver Cliff did, I didn't think the county did, okay. Paragraph 4, neither Amendment 20 nor Amendment 64 permit local governments to deny individuals the constitutional right to engage in non-commercial, unlicensed grow operations. That is true. Paragraph 6, the reason for this, the circumstance has resulted in a proliferation of non-licensed and unregulated marijuana grow operations in Custer County. I would like to ask the sheriff, how many of these have you busted and how many arrests and convictions have you had with them?
So, Danny, I wasn't prepared to answer exactly, but I'm gonna say there were 6 or 7 illegal grows that we've busted since
I've heard
15.
about
county.
Since 15, in the county.
In 4 years?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead, sir, with your public comment. That's not necessarily a question and answer period. We're here to listen to your comments.
All right. Paragraph 8, section 30-11-101, subparagraph 2, CRS gives the Board of Trustees the authority to adopt and enforce ordinances regarding health, safety, and welfare issues, and to provide penalties for the violation of same. I looked that up. I didn't see where it gives you authority to supersede the Colorado Constitution. And I'll get to more of the constitutional problems here later. You're talking about the health, safety, and welfare issues, and we're prohibiting people to grow medical and recreational marijuana. It's actually all medical. I don't care what you call it. It all helps with things. Prohibiting these grows, which I'll get into how you're doing that, actually affects the health and safety of the citizens of this county. A lot of people need this. It's medicine. A lot of people are getting off opiates, which we're having a problem with it in this country. I know people that have reduced all their pharmaceuticals tremendously by using medical marijuana and CBD. Page 3, that'll be page 2. Paragraph A says marijuana may only be grown, cultivated, or processed as an accessory use at the primary residence of the person engaging in such activity. Caregivers, according to the Constitution, can grow on separate property from their residence, and in fact, some of them prefer that because they don't want to grow where their children are. In fact, if 13 or more plants grows, it has to be on agricultural property, not residential. Paragraph C, you're limiting the space to grow to 1,000 cubic foot. That's a 10-foot by 10-foot by 10-foot area, which is barely large enough to grow 2 plants, not 6 or 12. It's just ridiculous. You're limiting the people to grow their allotted amount. Paragraph D, limiting the areas parcel to 1 acre or more. That pretty much, I know this is the county, but people at the lake that don't have an acre of land, that prohibits them from growing their medicine, especially the people in the towns, which I guess this doesn't affect. Paragraph E, you cannot grow in more than 1 structure on any single lot, parcel, or tract of land. To grow marijuana, you grow clones because you want to get rid of the male plants, which are not effective and don't have the medicine. You can't grow the clones and the marijuana in the same area. You need to grow the clones separately. And according to my reading of the Colorado Constitution, caregivers are allowed 99 plants if they have the number of caregivers or patients allotted that many. They can grow that many. I don't know how. And there's an ordinance here I wasn't able to look up. Also, it says all plants. The Constitution defines plants under 8 inches tall and 8 inches wide are not part of the plant count. And you guys state that, you know, all plants of any size, so that's wrong. In section 7, the safety clause, they're passing this for the preservation of public health and welfare. It's actually limiting people's health and welfare. And also, if you limit the amount of people's ability to grow their medicine, what that's going to do is bring in black market people, and I don't think that's going to help the health and welfare of the community.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's right.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy Hockett. I live out in Cristo Vista, and let me break this down for you. I smoke about 24 pounds a year. That equates to about 2 pounds a month, or about a ½ ounce a week, or about 1.5 ounces, maybe 2 a day, depending on how crazy I get, which is about 10 to 20 joints. I need this. I don't have a driver's license. I can't go nowhere. I live on a homestead on a farm. I take care of myself. I take care of my animals. I got goats, rabbits, chickens, ducks, donkeys. I don't want to be in town. I don't want to be here. But I got to defend my ability to grow my medicine. I need this. Okay? I've been in mental hospitals for years. I did 14 years in the military. I did 6 deployments. I'm about my freedom. Don't take my freedom. Don't limit me in my ability of what I need. Okay? I can't go nowhere. I need this. I got to take care of myself. And that's what I'm going to do. So please don't limit my ability to grow my medicine. I have my red card right now. I'm not going to give it up. I need to grow summers. I need to grow a year's worth of weed in the summer. I can't afford to put lights on in my house and do all that jazz because I'm only apparently allowed 1 structure. I mean, this really, really affects me. So please don't take that away from me because what am I going to do? What's my ability? You know what I mean? So that's what I.
Thank you. Further comment? Yes, sir. State your name if you would, please.
My name is Brandon Rutt. I'm a caregiver in this county. I provide medicine for vets who cannot make it down the hill. As far as public health and safety, to hear that there might have been only 6 or 7 illegal grows in 4 years is an average of less than 2 per year. It is not a health and safety concern that we have to make growing illegal for the reason that there's illegal grows sprouting up everywhere. My grows have been found in compliance by local law enforcement. I cannot provide for my state right of 5 patients who are all veterans. I cannot provide for them with 12 plants. I cannot provide for them in 1,000 cubic feet. and I cannot provide for them in my residence. I do not want to grow marijuana for patients in a place where my children live. Colorado statute has already said that if I was going to have more than 12 plants, I had to do it in an agriculturally, commercially, or industrial zone location. So I went out of my way and spent much asset acquiring that land to be in compliance with the state. And now you were telling me that I have to grow it in a residence when I just spent time, effort, and money being in compliance with the state. Since I was going to have more than 12 plants, it had to be in an agriculturally, commercially, or industrial zone location. So I would consider that, even though I am not allowed to profit on marijuana, I can only help people as a caregiver. It is still a loss of asset to me that I went out of my way for state compliance, and then you are telling me overnight I am not in compliance. For me, in my greenhouse, 1,000 cubic feet is one marijuana plant. And so I cannot provide for 5 patients with 12 plants. These people need the medicine. And in closing, I just want to read, it's Colorado Amendment 64, subsection 3. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the following acts are not unlawful and shall not be an offense under the Colorado law or the law of any locality within Colorado, or be a basis for seizure or forfeit of asset under Colorado law for persons 21 years of age or older. A. Possessing, using, displaying, purchasing, or transporting marijuana. B. Possessing, growing, transporting, processing no more than 6 marijuana plants, and possession of the marijuana produced by these plants on premises where the plants are grown, provided that the growing takes place in an enclosed locked space, not conducted openly or publicly, and not made available for sale. Notwithstanding any other provisions basically means that if there is another law written that is in contradiction of the constitutional law, which you guys are claiming or not, that this provision would still apply. And in my opinion, arbitrarily assigning that you have to have an acre or more of space to grow your 6 plants is in contradiction of everyone's right over the age of 21 to grow their 6 plants. It seems like you're writing a law against the poor, where if you can't afford an acre of land, then you can't grow your 6 plants, and the people who can't afford an acre of land are the people that need it the most. They're the people that can't go to a dispensary and pay for it. And I guess that's all. Thank you for listening.
You bet. Further public comment?
I got something to say.
State your name, sir. Go ahead.
Jeff Ivy, first off, sorry for being late.
Okay, the name again?
Jeff Ivy,
Thank you,
I-V-Y, like the plant.
Okay.
You know, I don't know what was discussed before I showed up. As I said, I was late. But, you know, I just got a couple concerns about this. One is, like, income in the county, like all these small businesses and stuff that everybody tries to run. It's hard enough in the winter. You're going to take my medicine away, so I have to go down the hill and pay for it, which is money I could spend in this county. You know. Second of all, if I don't have my medicine, then I'm back to 120 Oxycontin a week, 30 Klonopin a week, 30 Trazodone a week. I was ejected out of a Humvee in 2007 in Iraq. I moved here so I don't have to do that medicine regimen. It was destroying my liver at 22 years old. I can't do it anymore. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Further comment?
Take a comment from you.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, we're going to have a discussion. I just want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to have a discussion. Okay, further discussion, gentlemen?
I do.
Go ahead.
I hear what you're saying. And as much as I personally don't condone marijuana smoking, I absolutely agree that there is a medicinal purpose for it, that it has been proven to be a valid remedy for some diseases that there is no other cure for. I'm concerned about this ordinance that we are looking to approve on the second reading. It's already been approved. I think we should go back to the drawing board and allow a medical professional or medical professionals, however we do it, state that if there should be some exceptions to this law, And that for people like you, sir, I hear you loud and clear. And you, sir, I hear what you're saying about your patients.
Thank you, sir.
And I think we need to have some method of allowing these gentlemen legally to circumvent what we're trying to pass today.
Couple quick questions here too. Hey Clint, on a lot of this, did you pull this from any other proven ordinances or how
did this come up?
This one specifically, I followed Douglas County ordinance. It's been in effect for some period of time.
Right.
Since the statutory provision allowed the counties to make modifications.
So it has been tested.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but so has other.
Hold on. Go ahead, sir, finish.
No, that's all I had to say, is that that's where I got this from, after the sheriff said that we had a problem here and asked, to see if we can do something about it. My research came up with this and that particular statutory provision they gave local boards of county commissioners to make regulations, and this is the one that seems to be used by a number of different counties now.
Good. Yes, ma'am.
Clint, when you say that it's been proven, has it gone to court?
I'm not sure about that. I'm just saying it's in effect in other jurisdictions.
Well, it's in effect, but it hasn't gone through the
Has there ever been an
constitutional
injunction
question.
filed in Douglas County?
I don't know what the legal history of it is there.
Did you look at other counties and maybe propose to adopt their system?
The other ones that I saw all followed the same one. That was just the one I happened to choose because they were all very similar.
And did we have a problem with illegal grows or people that were in compliance? I think the problem in the county was with illegal grows. I don't think changing the law is going to prevent criminals from preventing their crime.
I can not provide for 5 people with 12 pig plants. I cannot.
Well, you can't grow 12 in that cubic space.
I hear
And I
that.
can't vote
I hear
for
what you're
12
saying
1,000
loud and
cubic feet.
clear, and that's why I'm proposing we go back to this and write some kind of reasonable exception for folks like you.
For
and
medical
gentlemen
use, is
that-
that what you're proposing?
Right, somebody with a professional, if we got a prescription from a doctor.
Proven
I
compliance.
know that the medical marijuana card is somewhat of a farce, that you open the back of the magazines in Colorado Springs, you can find 15 doctors for $200 who'll give you medical marijuana card.
Or Oxycontin.
Yeah.
However,
Some people really need it.
let me finish there. I'm on your side. Get that right, okay? I agree with you. Legitimately, not the back of a magazine, and I don't know how we would come up with that, but maybe we did ask our medical professionals, our county nurse and the clinic board, and those people to help us come up with how can we not just willy-nilly give out exceptions to this, but have some kind of proven or strongly hinted at need for an exception to this law. I would be strongly in favor of that because I hear you and I agree with what you're saying.
Obviously, one should choose their words carefully here. I think we have sat and listened to your concerns, and some of them are very valid. I would like to have you understand where I'm coming from as a commissioner. I was elected to this position by constituents of this county. I think they elected me based on how they felt I believed, what my political views were, what my beliefs were for the county. Personally, I don't want anything to do with marijuana. Personally, I don't buy that marijuana is a medicine. I take it. Hold on, sir. Now, here's what we're going to do. If there's an issue with this, let me know right up front. I don't believe any of the commissioners interrupted anybody in this public forum. Is that correct? So I would ask the same courtesy from y'all. I'm not going to argue the science of whether marijuana is medicine or not. I personally do not care for the word medicine in place of medical marijuana. I think there's two different things. If people choose to use marijuana as a medical remedy, that is entirely their opinion and their right given by the legislature of Colorado. you have to understand, we're forced to deal with marijuana by the state of Colorado. Doesn't mean I have to like it. There's no part of it that I like. I think it's ruining this state. Am I arguing that it's not good for you gentlemen's cases? No, I'm not saying that. I want you to understand that. I'm not arguing that point. But I get tired of hearing medicine in the place of the word marijuana. Not just this morning. I'm not talking about that. So I'm telling you where I'm coming from, okay? If there is anything in this resolution that is illegal, then I suspect our attorney would have informed us of that. Would that be a correct statement, sir?
Yes, sir.
If and when I vote on this, I will vote with the thought that there's nothing illegal in this document. If it were, I don't believe council would be bringing it to us today. I don't think any part of marijuana is in the best interest of this county. I certainly can tell you the people that elected me to this position would agree with that. Further comments, gentlemen? Discussion?
What gives you the right to come in here and dictate our whole program just because of your belief?
Contradict what Colorado has designated as
Gentlemen, I will gavel all of you to silence. I have that authority. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be rude and arrogant, but I will not tolerate this out of control discussion here. We have been very respectful in listening to what everybody had to say. If, gentlemen, and I appreciate that, you want to speak, you must be recognized by the chair. Go ahead, sir, in the back, standing.
Jeff Ivey again. You said that you don't like hearing medicine and the use of medical marijuana. The federal government just voted the hemp and CBD be, in an agricultural state. CBD plants are actually marijuana plants. So you have the whole nation that's saying that CBD is a medicine, which is a marijuana plant. It's just a different strain of a marijuana plant. And you're saying this, and then you're saying the people that elected you are the people in this county, the people sitting in this room, some of them who have jobs that cannot make it here. That's the people who elected you. If we want to vote on this, if we were doing what's right for the county, I think it would be to let the people vote on it instead of going through an ordinance where the people don't get their vote. We have to come and talk to you guys.
Okay. Yes, sir, you had your hand up.
Danny Smith. You say you don't see it as a medicine. That's just your ignorance. There are volumes and volumes of scientific medical studies all over the world that prove it is a medicine. You should do a little research yourself and find out that you're wrong. It is a medicine, and a very potent one, and it helps people in a lot of ways. It helps people get off of pharmaceuticals, opiates. It's reducing the opiate crisis, which is a big problem in this country. I don't like it.
Okay, understood. Yes, sir. In the back, please. In the back, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I really feel that making such emotional statements really portrays the prejudice that you have for it, fights the actual informed decision that you're about to make.
Okay.
So please, as a constituent, please don't let your prejudice affect how I need to live my life.
Okay.
I need to live my life this way. Otherwise I'm going to kill myself or somebody else. You need this.
Go ahead, sir.
If the laws that we're living under are Colorado statutes, and Colorado has said that marijuana is medicine, then is his personal prejudice, does that make him, should he recuse himself from voting because of his personal opinion?
Absolutely.
Since you're talking about me, let me respond to that.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
guarantee you I got a personal prejudice against this. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's no political correctness about this. I think we're trying to have an open, honest dialogue. Whether you agree with me or I agree with you doesn't matter. The point is, do we have a forum that we can speak and share our beliefs? I think that we do, okay? Whether you agree with me or not, doesn't matter. That is not the point, okay? I don't think we have a gag order as elected officials not to say how we feel about things. Doesn't matter who it lines up with. That's not the point.
But does it make you incapable of making a non-judgmental vote as a county employee? Like, are you required because of your opinion or in contradiction with the Colorado statute? Since your opinion is in contradiction to the Colorado statute, must you recuse yourself from the vote?
No. No. By law, there is no there is no stated law that forces anyone to recuse themselves from a vote.
Yes, sir.
That is a
Thank you.
personal choice. You bet.
I
Yes,
just got
sir.
one more thing. You know, the back and forth thing is just going back and forth, really. I agree with Jay. I think it needs to go back on the drawing board. Just my personal opinion, just like you have your opinions. I think there's different ways to combat the illegalness in the grows in the county, whatever situations the sheriff's department may be encountering with it, other than regulating the people that are in compliance, that are doing the right thing. I think there's a way to go against the illegal side of it, other than restricting the people that are abiding by the law.
Okay. All right. You have another comment, sir?
I just wanted to add that, I'm positive that he is a great lawyer and that he writes things that he believes are law-filled, but he is just a human. So just because he comments that nothing in the ordinance that he wrote is illegal does not mean that that is so.
That's true. I mean, this would have to go before court if somebody decides that they take exception to whether this is a legal document or not. Absolutely agree with you.
Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
I guess my big request, because I'm sorry that I get emotional and I speak sometimes before I think, but I guess the one thing I would ask is that we at least take it from the absolute that we're going to vote today and then we're all out of compliance to a back to the drawing board, and let's do this right. Let's try to help people.
Okay. And you certainly understand this is the second reading of this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
Just a reminder, everyone, it was a different board, but a few years ago, the board thought that they were writing a law that was legal that allowed them to sell a road. As it turns out, after $250,000 in court fees and going to the Colorado Supreme Court, they learned that it wasn't legal to sell that road. They wrote that law anyway. I think this needs a second look because the county doesn't have to waste another $250,000 to be proven wrong.
Okay, good point. Further comment?
I got a couple of things to say. You first, Ben.
Commissioner Flower, I truly appreciate your candor.
Oh, that's Sorry.
She personally appreciates Canada too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
no,
I
I
couldn't
get it.
resist.
And all three of you, actually, to listen. These people are my friends. I know their history with the war. I know their medical background. And I support them.
Jackie, yeah.
You know, Tom, I think that I would be right beside you on your feelings about marijuana. But, gosh, I hate to hurt vets. And it seems like, and I can't imagine that Shannon wants to hurt vets either. He is one. Maybe there is a better way to get to where we want to be. I don't know. I mean, I'm a hard ass with most of this stuff, but man, these guys gave a lot so that we could sit here today and vote on this. And I'm just not sure I would have said before you read it that it's the right move, but now I'm not so sure.
Okay. All right. Let's hear
Shannon's in the back.
Commissioner Canada.
So I'd just like to.
Well, hold on just a second.
I'll wait till the
Maybe we've forgotten who's going to distribute conversation here.
Yes.
No offense taken. Yes, ma'am. You've been patiently waiting.
I'm not a veteran. I have some medical issues that CBD and marijuana, small amount of THC, help me with. I don't smoke marijuana. I never have. Won't. Not interested in it. But I have gotten off of about 10 medications. And I'm able to function. I'm able to go to work for Peggy when she needs me to. I can function in a way that I was not able to when I was taking trazodone, tramadol, permexapol, all these different things, all day, every day. I was a zombie. And I'm able to function now, and it's very important to me. Now, should you pass this and all these guys are unable to help me, then I'll just have to go to Pueblo County and spend that money there. And I think it's unfortunate to send revenue out of the county. I do agree with you that there are a lot of people that maybe don't follow the law. I think that the way this is written, it hampers these small business people, is what I'm going to call them. I think that, I don't think that's your intent. I think the intent is to allow things to happen in an orderly and controllable manner. But I think even just the fact that the 1,000 cubic feet is unreasonable. I mean, just that little fact makes me really agree with Commissioner Prince that we go back, that it's revisited and maybe redrafted. Thank you.
You bet. Let's hear from Sheriff Byerly.
So I wasn't actually here for the first reading of the ordinance. I was out of town, and so I didn't get a chance to talk about this ordinance at all. I did speak to the Silver Cliff ordinance when they read on their first reading on it, and I believe that the town of West Coast is trying to get the entire county to fall into line and, you know, some consistency to make it so that no one gets confused and know what happens. But one of the things I did bring up in the Silver Cliff meeting is that I agree with these guys. 1,000 cubic feet. That's a 10 by 10 room. 10 by 10 by 10 room. That's. I mean, I've been in grows. I don't know about one plant, but I've been in grows with 2 plants, and that's it. I mean, you're not going to get any more than 2 plants than that. I mean, because they get big. I mean, if you know what you're doing, and I said that on the record. It's sort of good. But if you know what you're doing, those plants are going to get big, and they're going to be very healthy. So the 1,000 square feet, I did tell them that's. I don't know how reasonable 1,000 cubic feet it is. So to be completely candid, like Mr. Flower and most people that know me know that that I'm a pretty honest guy, and I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on it. So when I spent my whole life in law enforcement, and we were out arresting everybody for marijuana back in the old days. Not that I'm that old, but you guys, right? None of us are, right? But well, maybe Danny. And so I was adamantly against marijuana, right? I just was because I saw what it was doing. But then, specifically when Amendment 64 and 20 came in, and we were forced to look at it in a different light, and we were forced to deal with it differently. Knowledge is power, right? So you start looking into it more, you start studying it, you start trying to find out more about it. And I will say this, that so I've never used marijuana ever. I've never toked on it at all. Had 3 back surgeries. I have back pain every day. Sucks. I just cope with it. But I will say this, I openly recognize that it does have medicinal value. It just does. Marijuana does. Because I want you guys to know I'm not against what you're doing. That's not where I'm going. That's not where I'm at with this. I don't think this ordinance should ever, and I would have to go back and look at it, but I don't. Any of my understanding of the ordinance would have never affect, like you, Brandon, that you've got a caregiver grow. It's agricultural, those type of things. My understanding was that it was specifically targeted towards residential property, like you're growing it in your basement.
I thought they said that I would have to grow it in my residence, and it would have to be under which I just went out of my way to acquire land to be compliant.
Yep. It's a structure, though. Okay, again, we are asking for public comment. It's not a question and answer period. Go ahead.
And that's my fault because I specifically went to. So my understanding, and I didn't have it in front of me. I asked her if she had an extra one to kind of peruse real quick. So that's a deficiency on my part that I'm not intimately familiar to speak of. But my belief was that we weren't trying to target where you've got a greenhouse that you're growing in. My understanding of the way it should be is that a residential property, not the residence itself. That's the way I would interpret, or that's the way I would hope to. The intent of it would be is so that if you live in Silver Cliff in a little bitty lot right there, and you're growing your plants in your trailer, or if you own 140 acres and you're growing your plants on that 140 acres somewhere, that's your prerogative. That's the way so all I'm saying is, look, I would much rather see somebody growing marijuana in a greenhouse instead of in their basement, where all the moisture and the mold and all that is going to be in the environment where they live. That's Shannon Byerly, Sheriff Byerly. You can call me all kinds of other names too. That's my thoughts on that. If we really want to make it effective, and if I missed that, then that's my fault. I should have come in, sent an email saying, hey, have we thought of this, or have we thought of that? So those are, I have other thoughts, you guys need to hear all those, but those are a couple things that I think that I would ask you to at least think about. And then lastly is that Mr. Rudd did bring up something that is a good point, and I could offer to have a review by the County Sheriffs of Colorado's judicial or our attorney. Okay, they could review it as well to say, hey, you may want to consider X or Y, because she sees all counties and she hears about a lot of other legal challenges to those things. I mean, it's something to offer. Again, I'm not trying to go one way or the other, but I would just like for you to at least consider that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think what he's saying is right on line, and I also think what he said before about the ordinance says because of the health and safety of illegal grows springing up all over the county, this is what we have to do. It sounds to me like 4 years having 6 illegal grows busted, like they're doing a great job, and they aren't everywhere. And that so much paperwork for compliance.
Okay. And that's the second time you mentioned that, and I'd like to address that a little bit, but we'll go ahead.
I would just want to put an opinion up, maybe a way to spearhead or to tackle this whole problem. Like, if you guys, the sheriff's department, or anybody else wants to get with the people that are doing it legally to help, so that, because we don't like people doing it illegally, it's tearing up our forests, it's tearing up all sorts of stuff. We don't like that. So if you can get with us to talk about how we can combat the illegal side of it, or the unhealthy side of it, or the people pouring nutrients out on the ground, or whatever, that would be, I think, a strategical move on everybody's behalf in the county.
You mentioned the 4 or 6 illegal grows the last 4 years. You have to understand, in my world, 1's too damn many. So I don't care. If there was 1, that's unacceptable. I'm not going to quantify it. I said, well, we've only had 6 in 4 years. No, if we had 1 in 6 years, I'd be on the fight about it. Here's what, as a commissioner, that I would like for you all to hear and think about. If you walk out of here today and you say, these 3 jackasses sitting in front of us had earmuffs on, they didn't hear one damn word we said, and they certainly weren't willing to listen and consider what we said, then it's open season. I have no problem with you getting up in the middle of your commissioners, okay? If you really walk out of here and feel that. Now, if you walk out here and go, I don't care one bit for Flower because he's an idiot, I will claim ignorance, sir. I did not sit here and say I understand everything. I told you how I felt, okay? That's different. You have every right to do that. I don't have a problem with that. You don't have to agree. You don't have to like it. There are a couple things in this document that are a concern to me after listening to you all. Okay? One of them is that 1,000 cubic feet thing. There's another thing that is in here that bothers me. I don't think we have talked about. It's easy for me to jump on something that's already been mentioned in politics and say, oh yeah, you're right, I don't agree with that. And that is that as soon as this gavel drops on an affirmative vote, this takes place immediately. I'm not sure I buy that. I think if we as commissioners are going to say we're going to place these restrictions on our county, when you walk out of here, you would probably be in violation, correct, if this were adopted today. And I'm not sure that's fair. To say we're going to adopt, or affirmative vote, we are going to put this in place, but you've got 30 days to prepare to come into compliance or something, I just pulled that number out, then that to me is more reasonable than saying it's going to be at the drop of this gavel and now anybody's going to be out of compliance. I'm not sure that's fair or reasonable. Okay.
I got a question for Shannon. Can I ask him a question?
Chair will allow. Go ahead.
Yeah, just so he can answer my question for you guys. Do you guys have enough manpower to go around the whole county and deal with trying to enforce this if it goes through. Is that
and
gonna take away from the health and safety of the rest of the county having to deal with that?
So honestly, Jeff, you don't care. No. You don't mind that's never, in my mind, ever been the intent of any of this, to go around and start going, okay, Jeff, do you have 13 plants? That's never been the intent. What the intent, and where we're trying to get with this is, so we've had 6 or 7 illegal grows in residences. Now, we've had other illegal grows, as you guys are well aware of, in the forest and stuff, but this wouldn't affect that anyways, right? But it's extremely difficult, and you guys will know this is absolutely true, right? So we know somebody's growing marijuana, and usually you have an inkling. I mean, you guys probably know people that are growing marijuana illegally. I'm not asking you to give them up. You probably know of some, right? As do we. Right? But it's extremely difficult at times. Let's say that you have a barn, right? And we know, because you can smell it. I mean, unless you're dead. So you can smell it. Now, if you've got a 40,000 square foot barn, and I can smell marijuana, you got a lot of plants in there. Fair enough?
Right, that's not issues, yeah.
And so, but because of the way the laws are written, there's no way for us to establish probable cause unless we just come and say, hey, Jeff, you grow marijuana, can I take a look? Well, if you're growing it illegally, you're going to tell me to go pound sand, as I would say, right? So we're trying to get a way to help us for the people that are growing it illegally, and we know they're growing it illegally, to be able to establish some probable cause so that we can go in and do exactly what you said. The people that are growing it illegally are hurting everybody that's growing it legally.
They are.
And they give everybody that's growing it legally and wanting to use it in a medicinal fashion, they're giving them all a bad name.
And this doesn't change nothing for anybody that's already growing illegally.
That's correct.
It's just affecting us.
It's just affecting
So you see where I'm going with that. So no, I do not have the staff to start going around knocking on everybody's door how many plants you got. And nor am I gonna do that, because I can tell you, I can care less what you do in your own house. You wanna grow marijuana, smoke it in your house, I can care less.
So second, do you think that's gonna cause a problem between people's neighbors if this ordinance is passed, trying to do the nosy Nancy thing?
Of course it will.
So
everything causes problems between neighbors.
If a road will cause a problem between neighbors.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna allow a couple more. We're gonna allow a couple more public comments. Then I will allow the commissioners' final comments, and then we'll move forward. Yes, sir.
It is very apparent by his words that even the sheriff was not quite positive of the scope of the ordinance as it was written. He believed it was going to affect residences and how they can grow. To me, it sounds like I may only grow in a residence and not on my agriculturally zoned property, where he claims he was just going to leave me be. And so I feel like you guys aren't ready to vote on this if the sheriff himself doesn't even know the scope of the ordinance.
Okay. Formal paper. It's James, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Would like to ask you if you have something you'd like to say to the commissioners. I was a little firm with you earlier. I'm not apologizing for that. I'm just offering you an opportunity.
I'm basically the opposite of you. I see marijuana and hemp and all the products that are derived from it. I see it curing cancer every day. I cure little babies' cancer that are told to go home and die in 10 days, 12 days, take your kid home and die. They come to me, and here it is 2 years later, their kid's still alive, cancer-free. I do this all the time, across the world, different countries. You know, I travel a lot, and I understand you having a negative opinion, and due to your background and your upbringing and where you came from and how you was raised and all that, that's what dictated that. And I understand that. But to be so cold-heartedly against us because of your opinion, it just doesn't seem right. I mean, and I'll tell you guys right now, if everybody in here in the room got together, we could make this work to where the houses are protected. No, there will be no illegal grows because we ain't gonna allow it, and we can keep our people and medicine here for the people. You know, I mean, and I can understand doing an ordinance that if you're right here, you can have a 10-foot greenhouse. You know, you're not going to let somebody slap up a 200-foot greenhouse right in their front yard. But anybody that's out, you know, that's got the room and has the means, you know, they should be allowed to do that. And last point, As soon as you guys get cancer, who are you gonna call? Watch. Tell me, I mean, and I know, and I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but I'm a little upset because we got a lot, you know, we got a lot hanging here.
I appreciate the fact that you've made us aware of that, okay? That's again, I hope you don't go out here going, these commissioners had earmuffs on the whole damn time.
No,
They didn't hear a
absolutely
thing we said. I've certainly been listening, as I believe my fellow commissioners have.
Yeah, I have to, and I need to talk to. This isn't the Jay and Tom show, it's the Jay, Tom, and Bill show. And I am a vet also, and I hear you. And I have grown up in an era where marijuana was puffed out in the schools, and I have personal experience, not just my own opinions or based upon how I feel. I've seen things. I've seen marijuana ruin people in their overuse of the stuff. I have a good friend, and he's just a vegetable. I mean, he smoked it every day of his life, and how hypocritical too it can be. The same people that want to ban smoking smoke dope. You know, that's crazy. The same people that want to ban advertising whiskey on signs. I'm embarrassed to drive up I-25 and see signs for the best, strongest marijuana you can get. Come to this gas station at the same time you gas up, you can gas up. Think about how crazy we are.
Put that in your argument.
And yet, we use heroin in 4 different forms to get good medicine, to get people out of their pain. I've seen that too. I've been there. And unfortunately, people abuse it. Just because it's legal now doesn't mean there are people with cards out there that aren't abusing the system and creating problems for you guys, if you are straight up, that cause Shannon to go out and bust some people. That is an issue. And the fact is, somebody's goodness is somebody else's illness, meaning, I don't like the smell of the place, why don't you go check it, Shannon, they're probably growing 12 plants instead of 5, you know. How do you enforce it? And so I happen to agree, I grew up in this county. I love this county. I love our way of life. I want to keep it that way. This county will not, as long as I'm here, allow commercial production of dope, period. That's my position as having thought through things and what I want my kids to grow up seeing. I don't want them walking down the street and smelling crap and all that kind of stuff. And that's the position of this county. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't be able to do something medicinally? I happen to probably concede that there may be some value in that, just like the heroin deal, right? So I have the same reservations that Tom does and Jay do about how this ordinance is written. That's why I asked the question in the first place on what this was based on. Has it been tested? And it evidently hasn't, but because nobody's bothered to do that yet. I hadn't thought of the 1,000 square feet. Now, there's 2 pieces to this ordinance. There's recreational use and there's medicinal. You guys are all here from a medicinal point of view. That's what I'm hearing. I haven't heard one person come in here and say, I can't get by with 12 plants and 1,000 square feet in my home just to go do whatever I do. So how do we got to look at this logically. What are we going to do? Can we reconsider this and separate the 2? Can Shannon enforce the 2 back there differently? You know, those are questions that we got to consider as we go through understanding this. Just a second. So there are, and even your enforcement issue, Tom. The minute you snap the gavel, everybody's all of a sudden Shannon's got to arrest them as they walk out the door. You know, I don't think so. So how do we? This is the discussion with us. How do we go forward here to do the right thing and still protect our county and our environment and our way of life?
Can I suggest something, Commissioner? I would like to volunteer. First of all, I'd like to say, let's let this motion die for a lack of passing. I would like to meet with Sheriff's Department, with whoever is a medicinal user, with county, and I will take it upon myself to write something to bring back to us to consider to allow the medicinal use. I'm a firm believer, if you read the medical articles about
Yep.
marijuana, I'm a believer that there are certainly
And
good reasons.
I agree.
So what I'd like to recommend is we allow this motion to die that's on the table. Allow me to meet with the various groups involved, and let me bring back something for us to discuss.
Before we do that, one other point that needs to be made because of that. Processing this stuff has gotten more scientific, and you read about every day how strong things are, and it gets into some gummy bear, and a kid gets a hold of it and dies or whatever. You know, there's that issue. How do we make sure? See, there's more to it than just cubic feet X plants. We've got to consider the whole picture of what we want to approve from a medicinal point of view and control it in a distribution and a controlling point of view.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and that's what I would like to bring back to this tribunal, a modified resolution or ordinance to say that here's how we would handle it to accomplish the problem. I was all in on this. In fact, I think I made the motion earlier.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and approve the second reading. And then I listened carefully. And the
I
more I
see
think
that.
about it, the more I think, you know what, I think they're right. They
Well, we gotta
have
do
a
it the right
very
way.
valid point. So we need to do the right thing for the people who need the help. And we need to also protect the county, which is what this ordinance, I looked at it, I did not take this into consideration, and I should have. I was remiss. So the ordinance serves an excellent purpose, and Shannon brought it to us, talking about these busts. We got a house that's been busted more than one time. I mean, it's a disaster. But this is not what they're asking for. They're asking for help us with our disease issues. I would like to come back and see if we can get a conglomerate of the different needs and come up with still be able to accomplish what the goal is, but to satisfy the true needs of the, I don't know if it's a few citizens of our county or many citizens, those citizens of our county that need the additional help. And I'd like to take that on, and I would like support from my fellow commissioners to allow us to revisit this.
Jeff, you got something?
Yeah, hold on.
He asked me.
It's fine. We'll go through the chair like a meeting's supposed to be run. We're not gonna get helter-skelter. Commissioner Kanda, you opened your comments with this is not a Tom and Jay show. If I have been remiss in recognizing
No, you didn't.
Let me finish, please. If I have been remiss in recognizing you in your effort to speak as a commissioner, then you certainly call me on the carpet. You call a point of order and you say I have every right to speak if I'm not allowing you to speak. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think I have ignored you in your request to speak. So I take offense, sir.
Well, I didn't mean that.
Let me finish. Let me finish. This is how we live and survive as a commissioner.
That's true.
That we can speak openly and honestly. This is the only chance we get. So if I am remiss in doing that, I certainly expect to be called on the carpet. I agree. Can you tell me your name again, sir, in the back, kneeling down?
My name's Jeremy Hawkins.
Jeremy. You and I are cut from the same cloth in this regard, sir, that we do sometimes let our emotions override us. I'm a very emotional person. And so I understand what you're saying. And so I just want to say, as a chairman of this commission, if I'm remiss, then I expect to be called on the carpet by either one of you gentlemen. I don't believe that has happened this morning, so I thought your comment was unfair about this is a Jay and Tom show. I just want to say that. I would let you rebut that because you have been...
No, I'm not going to rebut it because I didn't mean it that way. I wanted to make sure, you know, I sit, listen, and absorb it, and everybody else has had a chance to talk. I wanted to make sure I was understanding, and that was the only... It was not directed at either one of you as somebody that wasn't allowing me to speak. So sorry that came up.
As a commissioner, I'm not willing to just let this motion die. This is what I would be willing to do, and I will do that, is I will make a motion to postpone until our March 29th BOCC meeting and give us 30 days to come back and review this and take into account everybody's comments, concerns. I happen to agree with Commissioner Prince about getting together and revisiting this. I'm certainly not interested in railroading something through that's irresponsible and not well thought out.
So Robert's rules wise, that's possible, and what are we gonna do? We gotta
I
try
just
to
made a
rewrite
motion
it?
to postpone definitely to March 29.
I'm gonna second it, but I have a comment after.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to postpone this item of business to, let me restate that. It's been moved and seconded to postpone the adoption of this second reading of this ordinance until March 29th. Discussion.
I will say that I will work diligently with all the groups involved, Sheriff's Department, legal counsel, and the gentleman and nice lady who are here, and anybody else who has something. I will do my very best to have something to present for the 29th meeting, but that's a pretty short time frame to do this, so I just want to put on the record that I may come back and say we are working towards something, maybe we postpone it again. I just want to put that on the table.
Would be your right, and in response, let me say why I made the motion the way I did. I just didn't want to leave this open-ended. I think we were prepared, obviously, to vote today, so I don't want to milk this out another 3 or 4 months. If that time constraint ends up being unreasonable, then certainly, as commissioners, we have every right to postpone that again.
Perfect.
Further discussion on the motion?
I think that's reasonable.
I will take one more, I'm going to call it a public comment, and before I do, I want to commend you all. You've been very respectful, articulate, well-spoken, well thought out. Go ahead.
Just for Dan and Bill, I know I heard y'all's conversation about, trying to figure out something about the medical side of it and how to change this or how we can bring it back up to the drawing board. I just have a concern being a veteran firearm owner. I'm sure these guys like in the back of their mind knowing that there's a bunch of veterans in this county that are carrying, that if they're on the side of the road getting beat, that there's somebody there that can help them. With the new laws that are coming in with the state and owning a red card and being able to purchase firearms, maybe even possess firearms, who knows where it's going now because they just voted it down and it's going back up for something else. If we don't have medical cards, but we still use the plant medicinally and want to be able to protect ourselves, our families, hunt for our own food, I think the recreational side also needs to be looked at.
I would be happy to discuss, and we discuss this entire realm.
We have a motion on the floor, and typically the public comment would be whether or not we should postpone this until March 29th. I know that's not where your comments are going, so I'm going to beg your understanding here. Any further discussion on the motion that reads, we will postpone consideration of Ordinance 19-01's final reading and adoption until March 29th? Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest April.
Okay.
I'd suggest the end of April.
Okay.
Just as a question of process, when you postpone it, the vote, does that mean that the exact same wording of what we just all discussed might not be right? Is you guys will be voting on the exact same wording in a month?
No, we're postponing the adoption of this ordinance, so it could be amended as, in my perception, Commissioner or Counselor.
Yes.
Input on that.
If we're only amending it to something like instead of 1,000 cubic feet, you changed it to say 4,000 cubic feet, which is 20 by 20 by 10. I mean, that could probably be done without having to do a whole rereading. It's more substantial.
Right. If we change the intent of the ordinance, then it would have to start over the entire process.
Just as an example, my growing facility is 47,000 cubic feet.
Okay.
Correct.
One more time, yes, sir. Last comment.
Thank you for your due diligence. How can we be notified when we can get with you to try to work with you?
We're going to talk about that in about 10 seconds.
It's a good question.
As soon as we vote,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you information on how we can get together.
Thank you, sir. Let's call the question and we'll get that out of the way.
Question's been called. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to move previous question. If passed, this will end all debate and call for an immediate vote. All in favor of immediate question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion. Previous question carries. All in favor of postponing the final adoption of Ordinance 19-01 until March 29, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Commissioner Prince?
Thank you, sir, I appreciate you recognizing me. What I'd like to do, if you could, for the folks that are here, if you could appoint one person who will receive information and disseminate to everybody, that'd be real easy for me.
Danny said.
I don't care, I'm happy to work with Danny, so that I can get with Danny and say, how's this day where we can get together for our first meeting, that type of thing. Sheriff, would you be able to have one of your deputies or maybe the assistant sheriff, under sheriff, be able to join us in the meeting?
Absolutely, yeah, well, I mean,
Right.
we want it to be a.
Right, I want it to be a
conglomerate,
and
we want
I'd
it to be
like to open
effective,
it
we
to.
don't want it to just be,
Right.
something that we can't enforce and it's violates somebody's rights, so.
Right, and I'd like to, if I may, please, just let me finish this for a second, and I'd like to open it to the public, if anybody else wants to come, to help formulate a.
So I'm hearing your contact will be Danny, but we could all come to the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
And are you prepared to pick a date today, sir?
Well, I was gonna ask Danny if you could give me either an email or how I could reach a phone or something. I'll look at my calendar, I'll call you today, and we'll set something up in the next day or two.
You want my email address now?
Perfect.
It's Jester, Jester, 3123.
Yeah, you can write it down. If you don't mind, Danny,
That's fine.
I don't understand.
and you may or may not have known this, I should have mentioned it earlier, and I apologize. This meeting's being live streamed, and so certainly if Danny wants to give his email out, he can, but if he wants to write it down.
You can also find it on Facebook. It's very literate on Facebook. I see it all the time.
So we're gonna move forward. Here's what the chair would request, that if you have further conversations pursuant to this, I would ask that you take those out in the hallway. We've still got an agenda to deal with on this meeting, and so that you guys understand, I want to say this on the record. And it was my mistake. Mr. Gulliver, I apologize to you publicly, sir. It was not intentional. I jumped right over the next agenda item and went to this resolution. That was out of order. I should not have done it. I apologize. You were patient to sit here and wait because you were next on the agenda. So, gentlemen and folks, I just want you to understand that Mr. Gulliver has been very patient to sit and bide his time as well. So thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Again, if you want to continue this discussion, I would ask that you do it in the hallway so we can move on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your
Yeah, and
time.
I'd like to thank you all too. You were very articulate, and it wasn't emotional too, but it was controlled, and I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
I think this is a very good lesson in government for people.
Next item of business, and again, I apologize, sir, Mr. Gulliver. Please come forward.
Would you like me to talk from the doorway?
You can sit in this chair, actually.
Come forward.
Well, then the people in the back might have to.
No, that's all right. It's standard procedure.
Oh.
Yeah,
There's nobody's gonna be in the
That's what we'd expect.
We always.
Well,
I'm back
how are
here.
Well, you're there.
I think Commissioner Prince and I have met Mr. Gulliver. This is Commissioner Candidate Terry Gulliver, our County Attorney Clint Smith, and this is our Secretary to the Board, Kelly Campbell. So welcome.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you for coming, sir, and I appreciate the delay. I appreciate you being here.
yeah, without any medicinal aid, like I said.
We might be able to fix it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
So I'm Terry Gulliver. I'm here today because I had come to Commissioners Prince and
Flower.
Sorry.
No problem.
To talk about volunteering professional services on a volunteer basis as a retiree to regarding water issues that might be of use in the county. I have a tinge of an accent and I can't really do a whole lot about that, I'm afraid, but I've been in Colorado for 40 years and I have owned a house up by Alpine Lodge for about 8 years or something or other, so I'm not exactly a native, but I'm at least a part-time resident, and I'm now more or less retired. I still do a little bit of work on the side, but I have time to consider what retirees often do is sort of the civic duty of retirees, sort of volunteering help to their communities. And I have been a geologist for, actually I'd have to look at my resume and try and remember, but about 12 or 15 years, and then a groundwater hydrologist for about 25 years. And I was fortunate at that time to do a broad variety of water-based issues, so I've got a breadth of experience in that. I have approached Round Mountain and offers my services recently, and I'm not doing anything with them at the moment, but I've volunteered that. But a couple of weeks ago I attended the meeting over at the bowling alley with the Upper Arc came and delivered their proposal to augment, as the saying goes. Augment is sort of a bit of a shell game in a lot of people's eyes. It's basically water trading, and I was impressed by several things. One, that there was a large turnout, and people were almost unanimously against it, and they understood what augmentation is by and large. That is to say, they've been through this process before. And it's, I think, is, and they rejected it, the plan. I think it's evident that this is going to cycle again. It's going to come back in the future. And so I am here today to propose that the time may be right for the commissioners to form an exploratory committee to look into the value of perhaps a non-profit water conservancy body in the county to control water rights in the county, to try to keep water in the county, to help administer water rights that are in the potentially lapsing through disuse because people can't really keep up with them anymore. Or there are people who, ranchers who also want to sell their water rights occasionally, and the danger is that those rights then go out of the county and they're never recovered. I think that there's enough interest in the county on the parts of particularly the farming community that wanting to keep the water here and not having it stolen away from them, that it's worth the time, and if some of those rights can be administered in the county, there be enough fees generated that the conservancy body could more than pay for itself. That I think that if you set up an exploratory committee for such a thing, that you would want to have representation of the farmers, whether that's cattlemen or whatever body that is, I'm not sure. The county, the towns, San Isabel, certainly Round Mountain, and that these people should talk about common interests in keeping the water in the county. I have a little cheat code here somewhere for when I ran out of things, but
take your time.
yeah. So there are a lot of questions involved in what such a conservancy would do, and what they would have to do to be formed. You would have to get a water lawyer. I'm not a water lawyer. I don't know water law. It's to me scary. I've done a lot of work around water rights and fighting water supply, but when it comes to the legal issues, I always have to stop and think what the heck augmentation really means, and even things like conjunctive use of groundwater and the surface water. A lot of those things are not just legal terms, but they're shifting senses. So a lawyer would have to be got on board at some stage. The boundaries of such a conservancy would be kind of interesting to think about, whether it's the county, whether it's the valley, and if that would extend into Wefano down past the Navajo ranches, etc. Another big question for Conservancy would be whether there's any value in actually staying in the Upper Ark District. It was voiced at the meeting that there's almost 50,000 paid in taxes, mill levies to that district, and whether you're getting your money for that, your value for that money, or whether it could be used better in a locally controlled conservancy board is certainly a big issue. I think one of the issues that people were most uncomfortable with around the augmentation plan was the sort of unarticulated threat to groundwater. Groundwater is a strange issue here because there's a huge aquifer and almost nothing is known about it, and how it is connected to the surface water. There's really very little information on it. What I found is sketchy, and I can get sort of a general idea about what's going on there. There was a USGS put out a report in 1978 about water resources, and it has a lot of reliance on a well that was drilled to 1,200 feet up by the Degree Ranch, but it's there's very little real information, and to try to assess a whole aquifer. I mean, if you look at something like the Denver Basin or the Fountain Alluvial Aquifer, people spend millions of dollars on those things, trying to assess connections, define the aquifers, who owns the rights, and all that sort of thing. And the county cannot afford to do that sort of thing. But what I would commit to doing for this Conservancy board, if it's formed, is, in fact, I might do this anyway, but I'll hold it until there's somebody to present it to us. Write a report of what the groundwater seems to be as a resource, and what potential there is for it to be used, and what the questions are, and how much money it would cost to resolve those questions. We can say that it might cost $10 million to sort of characterize the aquifer here, and the county's not going to cough that up, but to the city of Aurora, that's peanuts if they could get 100 million acre feet of water out of it. So the valley needs to have an idea of what the water resource is, not just the surface water that everybody is using, but also the groundwater, which is sort of in touch with it. It's tributary, in other words, and whether you can actually, what the potential is for its use in the valley, and whether there are isolating zones in there such that there's a confined aquifer underneath that somebody could come in and stake claims on and try to export that water. So I'm prepared to do that. I can certainly participate in the exploratory committee for this I've proposed, and giving advice. I don't have any details, so I certainly don't have a plan to put on the table and say, hey, give us $50,000 from the Upper Ark and we'll just go run with this. I'm saying form a committee, investigate it, and I will help as mostly as a groundwater person, getting together the information that's available to characterize what can be characterized.
You're proposing that as a pro bono kind of thing, volunteering?
Yes, if it gets to be where I'm driving to Salida and Pueblo and everything every day, then I might sort of start asking for, expenses, and the sorts of things that you guys probably get. But I'm not asking for any pay otherwise. If there was something, for instance, that somebody wanted to, if the board, if the Conservancy wanted to do a drilling program to explore the water right, then I might help you put out a proposal, and then if I administered it, then that's all different stuff. But what I'm proposing at the moment is basically pro bono volunteerism.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Nope.
First, let me thank you for coming here. We have a lot of wonderful people in this community who do come forward and volunteer. It always makes my heart feel good when they come and they say, I want to, and I'm not kissing up to you, I'm just telling them, like Commissioner or Chairman Flowers said earlier, he's emotional, I am too. And it just makes my heart feel good to know that people are willing to come forward and say, I want to help the county and here's what I can do. So thank you, and that's sincere. A couple questions. You mentioned that there's a USGS report or something that may give us some idea of the amount of water in the aquifer. Would we need another study?
Well, that was based on shallow wells. The deepest well that they have any data for was 1,200 feet deep. Wells start to get expensive after that depth anyway, but if there's, another 8,000 feet of depth of water underneath it, and Aurora comes and says, we're taking it, it would be nice to know what is down there. I suspect that if there is a clay confining layer, there seems like there might be from that log, and that was actually done by the USGS, so it's a little bit better than the average geotech junior sitting on a well with his.
When did they do that?
It was a 1978 report.
1972. 1972 is when they were doing it.
Either way, it's 40 years old or more.
Yeah.
It's not that the aquifers really moved a whole lot, but there aren't a whole lot more wells. There's a rumor, and I haven't tracked them down yet, of a couple of oil exploration wells having been drilled earlier even than that. And they should have logged them, but in those days they didn't waste their money on the shallow crud that they drilled through, so there might not be anything, but I certainly want to go to Oil and Gas Commission and see if those can be found, because if you could even find an electrical log through the, some of that stuff would be interesting to see. I suspect that if there is a confining layer, so that there's a confined aquifer that's not connected to the surface, then it's going to be saline, and it may be too saline for irrigation, but it may be something that gets blended. So that anything that's freshwater may be declared tributary, so that if you pump it, it's actually going to draw down the water table in your neighbor's place, and that's verboten. So, but you may be able to use it conjunctively with the surface water if you understand the system well enough.
I'm going to defer to Commissioner Canada, but that's okay. Anything?
Couple things. You're proposing a committee here.
I think at the first stage you do little exploratory committees, but certainly the biggest stakeholders are the ranchers, the farming community. So get some stakeholders together, have them discuss if they really even want to do it. I think they will say, the people were pretty fired up at that meeting about it. Get the hell out of here.
They are. Part of the problem is it's a lack of knowledge, and it's a lack of that. I see this sort of as a redundancy. There is a conservancy, that's the upper arc guys. They're supposed to be a conservancy, and they're supposed to be watching out for us, right? If you believe it. What I was looking at personally, and haven't had enough interaction with the upper arc guys to get where they're headed yet, and I intend to, is I think a committee is a good thing. If it, our own water board per se, that's looking out for the ranchers and the underground water, that really interacts with that board, because there's strength in that. We don't have the money, and we don't have enough. We're not going to raise a tax that I can see that's going to be enough value to go fight Aurora if they want our aquifer. You got to spend a lot of money fighting that in a water court. And that's supposedly what these guys are supposed to be doing for us. So,
yeah.
But we got to get them under control. We got to be part of it. Maybe that's a good thing to be thinking about.
But in terms of revenue, if I was to find for you in the valley, in the public records of the state of Jerry Livengood's data that's collected by the state in the public database, say 100 cubic feet of water, 100 acre feet of water every year that's hasn't been consistently used over the last 10 years, so it's in danger of lapsing,
Right.
those water rights lapsing. And this agency, which might be one person in a corner office here in the courthouse, could, plus the board, the conservancy, could lease that money somewhere, preferably inside the valley, but if not, say to Pueblo, and generate $200,000 worth of revenue and take 10% of that as fees, then you've paid half a person's salary. Stuff adds up, you know. I mean, I'm not. These are very much what if sorts of things, but it's that's why I don't have a piece of paper for you and say.
And we know, Bill, just to follow up on that, if I may, we know that Upper Ark has $2 million in cash just sitting there, so they're generating revenue. I just wanted to make that comment that we know Upper Ark has that money. We sat through meetings where they reported.
And they intend to use that hopefully to defend things, but and buy water as well.
Right, but I think part of the suspicion that I got at that meeting was that people couldn't really talk too much about the groundwater because they don't know the aquifer. But the threat is that Upper Ark may want to try to use groundwater to augment their taking the water somewhere else, and so nobody knows what those impacts are. And some of that stuff is unspoken, so we don't really know what it is. But knowing what the aquifer is helps in that whole augmentation game and protect their augmentation game, the water trading from. And you know, several people said at that meeting, if you take water from this tributary to augment down here, that doesn't necessarily, it might help these guys, but it's not mitigating the damage up there.
But then I would like to see you, us, if we had this committee or conservancy, then hold their feet and use their engineers and their leverage, their wherewithal, and make them do what they're supposed to be doing for us. I mean, that's my view.
Right.
That would be a very good, big value to us, because right now, we don't, from a representative point of view, we're undermanned over there. You know, we've only got two reps.
Right. So I'm not proposing that you do a big drilling program. I'm saying that you, if you had a committee,
I don't look at Bob as a director.
that you could give more feedback on that and keep overseeing engineering. Yep.
Just a question. As you know, we filed a protest.
Yep.
You probably know that we are trying to hold them to their word that if we choose not to be part of this new augmentation plan that they're proposing, that they would cut Custer County out, and we sent a letter to them formally requesting that they honor their commitment that they made to us. Whether they do or not, I don't know, but that's what we did. So my question would be, are we jumping the gun? If they cut Custer County out of the org plan that they have filed with the water court, do we really need to do this? But I heard you say something when you first sat down, that this is going to be an ongoing, I mean, if they don't do it this time, maybe next time they will, and if they don't do it the next time, maybe the time after that they'll do it. So, is that where you're coming from on this?
Exactly. I think that people were hot under the collar at that meeting precisely because it's cycled back and they've rejected it in the past, and it's going to keep coming back again. Denver and the whole Front Range is growing like crazy, and everybody, all the developers assure each other that they've got lots of water.
Right there.
Yeah.
Where are they going to get it?
Where, right.
Well, if I may, I think a couple things. You may or may not be aware of, at least at one time, there existed the Custer County Water Users Association.
Yes.
I don't think that was ever formally dissolved. I think it kind of lapsed into some state of being after Upper Ark voluntarily withdrew their last water augmentation plan for Custer County. So there is a possibility of looking into that organization as well and saying, are you folks that were involved, are you interested in reviving that water users group? I think there would be some value to that. Doesn't mean there can't be other people come on board to that, but it would be interesting to kind of poke that bear and see if it's still viable.
Yes, I don't know the history of why, who the stakeholders were in that, or why it dissolved. If it was really formed in self-defense against former initiative and then sort of faded away.
I think primarily it was.
I would suspect.
The minutes that I've read from those meetings kind of indicate that that was why.
Right.
I think there's a couple of things I wanted to just mention quickly. One is I would encourage you to regularly attend the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meetings. The next one is March 14th in Salida. I can certainly get you that information if you're interested.
Yeah, I
but
can look it up.
I think, as Commissioner Candace said, we all need to get more knowledgeable and stay on top of this game. And then the other thing that you spoke about that piqued my interest, and I'm convinced of this. Nobody knows what's this underground aquifer is, can delineate it and define it. I just have not seen anything that anybody can unequivocally say this is exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And without your thinking of drilling 40 wells, I don't think they could ever determine that, whether it's a closed basin aquifer or not. But I do think it is a pending and looming low-hanging fruit. We didn't think of them that way before, but when the dollars get big enough, I can see people forget surface water. It's over-appropriated. Let's go after
That's right.
Ground basin water.
1 second. I need to be excused for 30 seconds.
No problem, sir. So, appreciate, I think, what you're saying. I would like for us to move forward, and part of that being, let's look into this Water Users Association and see if that's still a viable place to start.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the committee.
You know, the other part of it was that I suggested, you know, that there's a lot of water rights around in the valley that people have either tried to sell because, you know, the ranchers own them and they sort of see that as part of their retirement plan.
Absolutely.
Right? There's those, plus there's the water rights that are kind of in danger of lapsing because the son has gone to Patagonia and the family doesn't want to irrigate that top 40 acres anymore, and that little water right that's less than 1 CFS hasn't been used consistently over the last 10 years, and it's in danger of lapsing. If you got all those together and you had one administrator, they could actually lease that water and return that money to the water rights owner with a little fee for the administration.
That's a good idea.
Keep water in the valley.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll get to you in just a second, sir. I'm not going to argue with you about that. I just want to share my perception on that. I have done a little research. Pending water abandonment rights, very few and far between here. I'm not going to say there isn't any. I know there are some, and in particular one major water right that's within probably its last of 10-year abandonment cycle. So no question in my mind that water will not be abandoned. I'm not aware of any abandoned water rights floating around in the county that's available, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't come up at a tenth or a quarter or a third of an acre foot at a time. So I'm not arguing with your premise. I'm just not aware of that. I've spoken with Water Commissioner Livengood about it, and he said, if you think there's a lot of abandoned water rights floating around, you're going to come up short, Tom. I said, okay. Go ahead, sir.
I would just make 2 points. One is that currently Upper Ark, the district, and I believe the county is also participating in a water balance study utilizing USGS. I believe we're in the last of our third year of the 3-year program, so that will be coming out at some point. The second point that I would like to make is that I would argue that any committee that would be done or any organization that would be acquiring information would be a private entity so that it does not become public knowledge, so that it does not become available to Aurora or Denver or Colorado Springs.
Good point.
before we figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, sir. And just a quick follow-up on the water balance study. We are in our final year. We just made our final payment of 3-year payment of $1,667 to pay for that water balance study. Chelsea Nutter was kind of the administrator for that. She has moved on. She is no longer with Upper Ark, so they're going to be, I'm sure, be bringing somebody else on board.
My understanding from her email was that she would continue with those
Yes.
programs that she's already engaged with.
She had an agreement with Upper Ark that she would continue to help them, but I would guess there'll be somebody new coming on. So, Mr. Gulliver, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't see any reason why, in my opinion, we can't continue some sort of relationship and move forward. I know there is a growing sentiment out there, my phone indicates that there are people, water right holders, that would like for somebody to take the lead and see about seceding from Upper Ark Water Conservancy District and starting their own Water Conservancy District. I don't know, I think there's two sides to that big old coin, but I've had several people say it'd be the best thing ever happened to this county if we could do something different. The problem with that is human nature is always going to rise to the top. So what's to preclude a new conservancy district from getting the money and the power and ending up as a bastardized organization that forgot what their original mission and values were?
Yeah, that's why I'd like to see us understand what Upper Ark's doing now, because they just getting our letters, they're going to react somehow. It's going to necessitate us doing something to be sure that we interact. They're not going to go away. They are not going to go away. And so I see a need to have whether we do something separate later on, it may happen or not, we still got to deal with the now. And I like the idea of having a couple guys that are focused only on that, and instead of bouncing around with a lot of other things. And I'm glad to hear you want to focus. We need a couple others, including some rancher types, to make sure that our issues are understood at that board, regardless of where they're headed. And we can fight it or go with it or leverage their resources. So, so let's see what happens.
Real quickly, if I may, gentlemen, we're rabbit trailing just a little, but I think it's not on the agenda, and I think it'd be an appropriate time to bring it up. We filed a statement of opposition with the Division II Water Court, as we have publicly said, for one of the reasons so that we could have a seat at that table. So we did receive, the commissioners did receive 2 documents this last week. One was from the St. Charles Water District. They filed a statement of opposition. It is here. I've kept a file on that. The other one that we received was from a local water right holder here went through the statement of opposition to the water court down there. It was rejected absolutely because the form was improperly filled out. I talked with the water right holder who submitted that, made them aware of that, which I'm sure they're going to get the same documentation.
Any reason why you can't tell us who it is?
I don't know. It's public knowledge. So John and Sally Brandenburg submitted a statement of opposition. You're welcome to look at it, but it was filled out improperly and rejected by the court. So those are the updates on it. Maybe we ought to put that on a standing agenda item as
Probably ought to, at least every other week.
As a Division II update thing.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
We can always bring it up under commissioner items too, I guess.
What's your phone number? You got a card?
Be careful with your email. I tried to email you a couple of times and it got rejected every time. And I think it's because I was using an O instead of a zero.
I saw that,
yeah. I think I spelled
one more, sir, if you don't mind. I thought you were doing great, Kelly. Thank you. Okay. Well, we appreciate your time, your interest, your willingness to volunteer to look into some stuff, and we look forward to utilizing your expertise and knowledge in this area, and we'll move forward.
Okay. Can I just make one last comment before you run? You talked about this organization that was here before. Yep. We talked about maybe, is that something you could look into, or is that something we need to look into to see how
well, I don't have any history. That was actually before my time. I don't know any of the people who are involved. I have heard rumors of them that that's all.
Okay. Well,
So it probably Jerry Lyman would know all about them, and
So I encourage you to at least speak with them
Yeah.
and see what their thoughts
I mean,
are.
I personally know some people who are involved in that. Obviously, they're not obviously, I didn't mean that. I apologize. The chairman of the last functioning Water Users Association has passed away, and he was a former commissioner. He was a commissioner while he served in that position, so that was Alan Butler. But I can continue to do some research, come up with those minutes, provide those to the...
Yeah, that's interesting, actually.
You know, it certainly wouldn't hurt, because Bill brings up a really good point. Even if we stay with the upper arc, these folks need to be involved. They need to know what's going on. They need to have a voice at the table, whether they're in the background and raise their hand. So whether we do it on our own or we have, it's imperative, and this was very obvious at the public meetings we've had recently, that our ranchers have been out of the loop and need to be in the loop.
And I think it's our job to make sure they are.
And that's why
And
I'm
that we were
bringing this up.
representative, and I like the
agree.
idea. We can make them come over here and give presentations. I mean, they think they do. Bob thinks he has, but they don't.
well, it doesn't necessarily have to be oppositional to the upper arc, but it's a local group of people who are following their own interests.
Right.
Following
That's what I like about it. That's where I've been.
There's nothing more important than our water.
Yeah, I would encourage you to attend
Yeah.
at least this next Upper Ark meeting and then maybe some subsequent ones there too. And to that vein, you know, I've sat through a lot of those meetings as has Commissioner Prince prior to us coming on the board. Commissioner Cannon has been to some. Very little business in those meetings have to do with Custer County, with the exception of this AUG plan. I mean, I've said it for a year and a half. They talk about, of course, their water rights in Conquistador 1 and 2, but only as an informational on a chart. This is our acreage footage, this is our releasing, this was the timing.
And even that, if you think about it now, just dawned on me, even those can impact us because they're releasing water, they're taking water, and it impacts us just on the business that they do internally over there. That's why it's important to have somebody always involved from our point of view so that we can react and help guide them on how, whether it injures us or not.
Yeah, I think one of the good things out of all of this augmentation, I think we're going to see a different mode of operation at Upper Ark than it has been in the past. We will see. I could be wrong, but I think we're on the cusp of a little different way of operating. Go ahead, sir.
It would be nice, because I asked them many years ago if I could get a copy of all of those charts and all of the public presentation stuff, and basically the response was no, that was for
in-house use.
How can that be? They're a public outfit.
Well, I can understand that prior to the board meeting, that is a board document. So it is for the board, but beyond that, I think it needs to be made available on their websites. And I have not been made aware that it has. And possibly something from you all might help disseminating that information.
Yeah, I've requested an agenda spot on their March 14th agenda, and that may be a great time to at least make that request again, and a little more public and official.
I will take it upon myself to revisit their webpage and make sure that they haven't been added.
You know, that's a good point, because technology's changed. It's hard to get the hard copies out. I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, and I don't blame it. I was asking for, because I don't want a bunch of paper.
I don't have the time to give it to you.
I don't want a bunch of paper.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. You bet. Thank you again for your patience.
Thanks for your interest.
Yes.
We blew by you, and I should never have. So.
Well,
Can we take a couple-minute recess?
Are you going right into executive session on this stuff?
Yes. Man, sure.
Are we done with the normal stuff?
If I could make 60 seconds, I got the three of you here. You had two items on your agenda that I wasn't paying attention to, and when I came over the whole water thing. One was the Second Amendment thing, and I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. The other is obviously the marijuana stuff. And, I did
Ms. Kelly, you okay?
Felt like a piece of hard candy from my talking.
Meeting will come back to order. The next item of business, sorry, let me back up. Any further new business, gentlemen, that you're aware of needs to come before the group? Nor do I. Any public comment? If not, then we will proceed to move into an executive session for the purpose of securing legal advice. And that will be, give me just a second here, almost quoted personnel matters, and this is not, so. Yes, but I want to be able to cite it, unless you already know the citation, which.
I usually just say based on the authorizations from by statute.
Okay, and we do need to cite that specifically, so, hold on just a second.
I've got a sheet if you would like.
Well, I'm sure it's 246402, but I just want to make sure, yes, that's correct. So this would be the citation, sir, if you care to make a motion.
I move that we move into an executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal matters under Colorado Revised Statute, section 24.6.424B.
Thank you, sir. I'll second the motion. Been moved and seconded that we move into executive session for a conference with the county attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on a specific legal question under Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, subparagraph 4, subparagraph B. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. We are now in executive session.
let me have that to you first.
Are you good? Kelly, you recording? Okay, BOCC meeting is called back to order. The time is 12:31, February 28th, 2019. Counselor, would you have a statement pertaining to the executive session?
The executive session was for the purpose of me giving you some information and some legal advice on possible future legal action, and we did stay on topic throughout the meeting, and no decisions were made during the executive session.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So again, the time is 12:31 p.m. The executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Meredith Nichols, Administrative Assistant to the Board, Ms. Kelly Camper, Secretary to the Board, Commissioner Kanda, Commissioner Flower, Commissioner Prince, and County Attorney Clint Smith. For the record, if any person who has participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Hearing none, we are officially in the BOCC meeting, and the next item of agenda is, and I have just a couple things I wanted to bring to the board. I should have done it in our commissioner items. I failed to do that, so I just want to throw these out real quick. One, I would like to see the commissioners consider a motion to direct Attorney Smith to file for an injunction when the time is appropriate. I don't know if we need to handle that today. I don't know when the appropriate time might be, if it's in the next few days, in the next week, 2 weeks. We meet again on Tuesday and Wednesday. Would you like to put that on the agenda then and deal with it?
It'll work. I was gonna make a comment, but
yeah, okay.
That's fine.
I don't think we'd be out of order putting it on an agenda, upcoming agenda. Do you, Attorney Smith?
No, if we put it on an agenda, we don't have to state the reason why. I mean, other than based on information I've given you in the executive session, you made it, or are going to make a decision, but that would be fine.
So why wouldn't we do it now then?
Well, we could. It's, I think, any decisions subsequent to an executive session would be in order, don't you? I mean, I don't think we have to have previous notice, 24-hour notice.
No, that's fine. And if you decide that's what you want to decide today, although it's not an agenda item today.
Right, and that's the only reason I was thinking about it, because we didn't have that 24 hours.
That's why I started talking, I shut up because it's like
I think we better to have it as an agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I would really like to just authorize legal counsel to use his best judgment, and if he feels it's appropriate to file an injunction, we're gonna back up our, we don't tell the sheriff when to make a drug bust or anything else. I think we can just authorize legal counsel to use his best judgment.
And for the record, I did explain what I was contemplating doing, and I think the only issue would be whether this should be an agenda item for you to be, even though the public to comment, they're going to want to know who and what and why and everything. And
discuss that.
It'll be a matter of public record if once I take the legal action that we talked about possibly doing.
Yeah, the only reason I said that was for the 24-hour notice thing. But I think subsequent to an executive session, we probably can make a decision based on information in the executive session, but
you can.
It's up to you
Sure.
guys, whatever you think is
And
your choice.
Even if it's on an agenda item, they're not going to have all the information immediately. It can be disclosed as soon as the action is taken, but until then, it's just authorizing me to do something. So it's either
Your
way,
choice, gentlemen.
I think we ought to make the motion. Okay, I move that we authorize the county attorney to take appropriate legal action based on his legal recommendation as discussed in executive session without further authorization from the BOCC.
The move second to authorize the attorney to move forward with any legal action on behalf of the county commissioners that he deems appropriate subsequent to our discussion in executive session.
Good.
Discussion, hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And then, the other thing I wanted to just run by real quick, gentlemen, probably need to have this on a subsequent agenda as well. I did meet with Jeff Uthier's Forest Service. They are going to pursue opening the top end and the lower end of County Road 365, is it? The South Hardscrabble Canyon that was wiped out in the recent flooding. They want to open that to the public for camping, hiking, hunting, the normal activities that go on there. They're talking about proposing the top 3/4 of a mile down and the bottom, the lower 1.5 miles up. 1.25 miles of that is across Bill Donnelly's ranch, and then there would be a 1/4 mile stretch actually onto the National Forest property. So he asked if we could have a discussion about that. Number one, is the county prepared to maintain those portions of road? Can we keep those open? He has had a discussion with Gary Hyde, and Gary told him that he didn't think that would be a problem. He's not looking for a decision today or an action item today, but I wanted to just mention that. He's not going to allow any camping within a certain radius of the parking lot, so it's really a parking lot and then hiking, backpacking, and camping, and that was one of Donnelly's concerns. He didn't like those people driving in there and camping and bringing all their stuff.
So there would be vehicular traffic on the open portion, not just pedestrian?
That is correct. Up on the upper and the lower portion of those roads would be open to vehicle traffic. Parking lot at each end.
It is County Road 3.
Yes.
66.
5/29. Okay, all right. So he was hoping that they'd have all the stuff done before then we'd come to a formal vote on the 29th. Thank you. Okay, so just FYI. Anything else, gentlemen, to come before the board?
It's 386.
386. All right, I don't know where I got 365. Anything else, Commissioner?
Nope.
Commissioner Prince? With consent, Chair will adjourn this meeting at 12:38 p.m.